This portal shows up and goes, I know the next step. And it makes no sense. And if you ask other people about it, right? If you ask other people about it, they're not feeling the calling you're feeling. So they might try to stop you.
You mean like
right?
the spiritual comedian?
Right. Yes. Yes.
I mean, it's insane.
Dude, when I left stand-up and started doing this, the whole comedy community thought I was crazy. Mm-hmm. So here's an example. You could have this feeling like, what if we left this company right now? Mm-hmm. And then the second you goes, well, if you do, we can't go to the Cheesecake Factory party next Thursday.
You're right.
Right? Yeah, and it's like, yeah. And then this first voice can't tell you this, but it's like, dude, if you'd follow me, you'll own all the Cheesecake Factories in a month. I got all kinds of stuff for you. And the second voice is like, yeah, but they have those Thai lettuce wraps.
And the breadsticks.
Right. So do you notice this voice can measurably see what you'll stay with? There's an egoic reason and control to try to shift people, even to change the world. And it's almost like fast tracking you to moving from this world of what you want to what God wants for you. That's the big shift right there.
I'd like to welcome back to the show returning champion, Kyle Cease.
I'm returning?
You're a returning champion, sir.
Do you like that I was more excited about returning than champion?
Very much so.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show, my friend.
I appreciate you, brother. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming out to the studios, man. This is so exciting. We've never met in person, but we have a lot of common friends, and thought this would be a great conversation to have in studio.
I'm honored to be here, truly. I think you're doing such a great job. I was just noticing as I was looking at the studio, people watching, there's room after room here. And you're doing so much incredible work. And it's weird because I always think of these things as this started with an idea for you. Mm-hmm. An invisible idea came through and then has unfolded into from a seed to a forest of magics.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Be proud of that, man.
I appreciate that very much.
It's beautiful what you're doing.
So let's dive in, man. The world is nuts right now.
Yeah.
Why, in your opinion, and when I say things like that, we're in an election year as it's a recording, and it's not only here, it's around the world that there's elections happening everywhere. There seems to be a lot of shifting going on. Arguably, this is not the worst it's ever been. There's times before that have been much, much worse, and so to put perspective for people, like, the world's coming to an end. When in the 70s, you go back to the news, the world was coming to an end. In the 80s, the world was coming to the end. In the 90s, the world was coming to the end. In 2012, literally, they thought the world was coming to an end. In 2000, they thought the world. So there's always been worse times. But right now, as we're feeling the now, it seems pretty chaotic, pretty nutty. What is your feeling of why the world is like that, what we're going through right now spiritually?
One of the things that's happening right now is I believe our false self is collapsing. So to me, a false self shows up from when someone as a child experiences trauma. They don't want to feel that again. So they do something or create a character to prevent it. So let's say a kid is spanked because they got a D in math, right? So their ego goes, that scared me, that hurt, so I'm going to create a false self. So they become a major achiever. All out of don't spank me again, or for some kids, don't yell at me, don't abandon me, whatever. So you have this false self, and then you call it your name. This I'm a make it happen person, or I am a worrier, I am a codependent, I am an avoidant, all these different things. And almost every I am is followed by a false you that we think is us. And imagine if those things are false, it's not really the God you, the one that's trying to come through, these patterns need to go. So in this time, it's almost like the light is so bright that it has to bring up all the lies. And so it seems like we are falling. But what's happening is you're birthing the actual you, the space that's here right now, and you're making room for the false self to be seen and come out. And what I believe more and more is the lens is opening up wider and wider, and more light's coming in. And a way to see it that was really interesting is I was in bed not too long ago. My daughter came running in, jumped up and down on the bed. Some dust came up, right? Now you could only see the dust where the light was coming through the window, right? It was everywhere though, but you could only see it where it was coming through the window. So the more light there is, the more of our darkness we end up looking. So it's in the whole room, but you can only see it where there's light. So more and more what's happening is the good news is your light is expanding and it's making you look within. And if you stop distracting yourself from the light that's being forced on you by flipping through stuff that doesn't matter, getting drunk all the time, gossip, complaining, different things like that, and you allow this light to keep coming through, you're going to start to alchemize the false self, the one who believes that you are your parents' kid more than the now's kid. Because if you think you're your parents' kid, they have egos. So you're also your parents' ego's kid. You're this programming that they were. And so then you start to match their programming. If you have a dad that's yelling or angry, you're going to become, I'm hidden as a protective mechanism, right? So the more the light's coming up, the more these things are starting to be seen as lies. If you think that's you, this is going to be a horrifying time because you feel like you're dying. So people that think they're the pattern, they get depressed and suicidal and different things like that. But the more you understand, oh, what's happening is I'm moving to the light version of me and the false me is dying, right? You become the space and the unconditional love to hear the false you that's coming and alchemize it. So to me, this is a total birth of the actual truth of what we are, because what we were before might have made sense in one realm, but it also didn't. In other words, what you were before was full of addictions or full of, it was just normal to go to the bar, normal to take pills, normal to do all these things. And yeah, we might have had our circumstances the way we wanted, but at the same time, we weren't connected to the true self. So that's why even if your circumstances are how you want, you might feel unhappy. So more and more what's happening right now is we're moving into our true self. And I believe our true self is miraculous. I believe our true self can make miracles. Our true self is free and joyful. And our ego often wants to go back to a time when things were better. And in some realms, things could be better. But some of the reasons that things were better was because your lens was just smaller and you couldn't see all the darkness that was still in the room. So as the lens expands more and more, you start to go, oh, look at this part of me I don't like, this trauma that's not me, this story that's not me, this achiever that's not me, even the positive things, the me that could make it happen so that I don't get yelled at again, right? These need to die. And we don't want to move based on covering up trauma. If you're like bullied as a kid and then I'll show them and you start a business out of that, literally the trauma of the bullying is now running your business. So if you heal it, the business will have to fall because it's not built on guidance. It's not built on expansion. It's not built on love.
So is that why a lot of these institutions, like, from religion to the economy to healthcare to food production to medicine, all of it, Hollywood media, seems to have cracks all over it.
Yes.
I mean, you and I both come from Hollywood and different avenues of Hollywood, but we were in there for a long time, and we saw a lot of things. But you start seeing the cracks now that people aren't buying what they're selling.
Yes.
In all of these aspects, from the Vatican, let's say, or Orthodox, Christianity or Catholic. I'm using them examples. As a recovering Catholic, I can say these things. But in all of these industries, all of these institutions, all these systems, they're not being of service to humanity anymore. And they seem, and people, because of all the information they're getting, because of shows like this, because of the internet, things like that, they're not buying what they're selling anymore. Right. Is that what the frequencies are just changing?
Yeah, because if the light's coming up in you and showing you all the lies that are in you, all of your limitations, all of your, it's also showing up everywhere, right? So one of the things that's happened, I believe, really much more exponentially since 2020 has been the release of our attachment to authority, to anything other than our true selves in the now. So we've had authority go to the government. We've had authority go to media, authority go to a relationship. Like that's the answer. Authority even go to your family unit, that you are your connection to your family. A lot of people experienced in the last 5 years a disconnect from people they thought they were really close to, a releasing of people, arguments over specific methods during 2020, different things like that. One of the things I've noticed is that these things have to fall away because the attachment to these things might have been bigger than your connection to you. So if the attachment to something you think is more your God than the now falls apart, guess what happens? The darkness that was under it can come to light. So let's say you thought a specific relationship was the answer to your life, right? This is the answer to, and then it collapses, or a person was your life and then they left or passed away or something. That might have been a remedy to the feeling of loneliness or darkness or not enoughness. But then when it goes, guess what? That comes to light. And you can see it if you don't refill it with another external thing, right?
But it's also not very pleasant.
Oh, no, it doesn't feel good at all. And it causes you to have to become more than now to become a space to hear it. So more and more, it isn't pleasant, and that's what's good about it, is like the only way to actually heal it is to become more of a space of the now, to merge with the now, to listen deeper, to stop distracting with too much external entertainment, too much, drugs or alcohol or anything like that, and become present. So the more you start to be the now, you notice that you start to connect to this field that's the actual you.
We are in a time of great change, and humanity is awakening more and more every day. Mankind needs insights on what is happening to all of us. That is why I'm inviting you to Wisdom from Beyond, a 6-day virtual summit designed to awaken your soul. Experience over 9 hours of soul-expanding channeling sessions led by 6 of the world's most esteemed channelers. Connect with the divine, receive sacred insights, and transform your journey by asking questions directly to the channelers themselves. This is more than just a summit. It is your gateway to understanding the profound shifts happening within and around all of us. Plus, when you sign up, you receive exclusive bonus content to deepen your spiritual exploration. Join us and step into the extraordinary.
And this field, I believe very much, a lot of people say, the higher me, it's healing the lower me. But the lower me keeps dying, so I can't be the lower me. In other words, I could feel unworthy one day and then heal that and then feel worthy. So the story of I'm unworthy can't be me. Every limitation that shows up in your body right now can't be you, right? Because it can heal and you'll still be. So more and more I start to realize the true self is this space, is the universe, is the all that is. That's the true self, right? And before that, we had attachments to these things like entertainment and the media, all these different things, and they're collapsing. And then when they're collapsing, their lies show up. What the media truly is, what the entertainment industry really is run by. These are starting to, isn't it weird I said that? You know what I'm talking about?
Oh my God.
20 years ago, that would have sounded like crazy conspiracy theories, but now it's normal.
But if it would have sounded like crazy conspiracy theories if, when I was coming up, I was taken around at the highest levels in Hollywood. I'm sure as well as you have. And you would just hear things. And you would I didn't go to a Diddy party. Thank God.
Yes, I didn't either.
Thank God.
That's how every person that's ever been in the industry now has to start anything.
Just
so you guys know, I haven't been to a Diddy party.
I haven't been to a Diddy party
exactly.
ever. There's no images with me in P. Diddy ever. So.
And once any of that is seen, it's healed. It's really surreal. In other words, once it's seen, obviously there's going to be a bunch of chaos as that gets seen, and the ego doesn't like to be seen. In fact, the ego's number one goal is to stay unseen. It likes to keep things vague, right?
Yeah, great.
So a person, a person might go, I don't like to be lonely, but the ego wants to keep it vague and go, don't look at why. And then because it might go, if you look at why, you'll realize I was scared to be lonely because as a kid, one time I was alone and someone hurt me. Mm-hmm. When I was finally left, my parents left, I was alone with someone and someone hurt me. Mm-hmm. So the ego doesn't want you to look at that because you'd see it and alchemize it, right? Correct. So the ego's biggest trick is staying mysterious, and it needs you to stay addicted to external things so you don't research it. Because if you start meditating, you'll see every lie inside of your body and heal it. But that's what's happening too on the external. I believe the more you heal what's inside, the more what's outside literally mirrors you. I believe Bashar's content that the world is mirroring you, that you're moving to parallel Earths at the same time. Mm-hmm. I find as I heal me, the external starts to come to light so much faster.
And you start to see things clear, things that you used to enjoy, you don't. My favorite quote is, my favorite little story is of Yogananda and one of his followers who was, a womanizer, all this kind of stuff. And he goes, Guru, I can't do this. I don't know if I can give up all the stuff that I really enjoy to do these teachings. And he goes, do you smoke? He goes, yes. You may continue. He goes, do you drink? He goes, yes. You may continue. Are you promiscuous with women? He goes, yes. You may continue. And he goes, well, but Guru, how can I do all these teachings and yet do all these things? He goes, you can continue to do all those things, but I cannot guarantee you will want to continue after you really take these teachings in. And that's such a profound way to look at things. Because if you try to change somebody, stop.
Completely.
It won't work. But you show them here. At a certain point, that stuff starts to dissolve because there's crutches or things that you just were using as fillers for the truth, right?
Yeah, well, it's really interesting what you just said about when you want to change somebody. I think empath's last addiction is trying to get other people to shift, right?
Yeah.
And that to me is an analogy I came up with recently about a lot of people like to be a light in the darkness, meaning like they're used to their mom felt shut off, so they want to awaken them, or they marry a narcissist, so they want to kind of get them to go up a lot and they won't change necessarily. The second we start to realize the shift is for me only, and that the byproduct is they will shift, you're totally free. And so we want to move from being a light in the darkness to a light in the light. Because empath's number one thing is outside of me, and what other people feel is so much more important than what I feel, right? And so they often match that. A people pleaser can only attract a taker, right? So if you keep going up and you notice my desire is for this person to shift, but that's control, and you release that, you move from being a light in the darkness to a light in the light. And you can also receive people that care about your heart too.
Isn't it interesting that, like, if you study the masters, and I'll use yogis for example, or a guru or of some sort, I've never, in all the footage of them or teachings and books that we've read, I've never heard of any of them going, I need to change Kyle. I need to help Kyle.
Yes.
I need to give you enlightenment.
Yes.
I never say anything like that. They are who they are in the now.
Yes.
They give you teachings and they let you figure it out. That is truly the purpose of a good guru, a good teacher, a good leader, is to not to try to change you, but to provide the fuel for you to change yourself and to come to these enlightenments yourself. Because just like when you're teaching a child, don't put your hand in the fire. Don't put your hand in the fire, you're going to get burned. You could say it 1,000 times, and they might kind of understand on an intellectual level, but the second they put that hand in that fire, that's the only time they'll ever have to do it. They need to discover it for themselves. Would you agree?
I would agree, and you'll start to realize the second you stop trying to shift other people. Like if I really think more like an apple tree, an apple tree just makes apples. It's not sitting here going, everyone needs to eat these, or stuff like, am I more like a pear tree? Like we have this gift here.
That other apple tree is so much nicer than my apples.
Right, yeah. You're sitting here comparing, and did I get enough apple views and all this stuff? You'd be, and by the way, it's a really funny analogy, because if you weren't giving your apple, if an apple tree wasn't giving its apples, the gift that it actually came with, that's beyond the hustling and force, right? If it didn't give its apples, it would get sick. It would have to get sick because it's not doing what it was here to do. It would have to get addicted. It would have to watch Apple Tree Netflix. It would have to, be stuck. Just
watch cable,
right.
Apple cable news.
Bonding with other apple trees that aren't making anything and complaining about other trees that are, right? Like
that mango tree. How dare they?
Right. And the more you let go of what the ego wants and you start to go up in frequency, you start to realize you just have your gift. And the more I'm not trying to get people to eat the apples that the apple tree has, I'm not trying to force this. I'm not addicted to how many did I sell? Am I the number one apple tree, right? The more I create space for it to just come through. But I notice when I let go of trying to shift people, there's actually pain here to heal. In other words, there's an egoic reason and control to try to shift people, even to change the world. If you're saying, I'm on this planet to change the world, even that's egoic, because God's just trying to shift you and you'll see the world change through you. But it's the ego saying, I got to lift everything up, that when you stop doing that, you start to hear that ego is doing that still out of a pain. I got to shift everybody because deep down I'm not loved. I got to shift everybody because then I'm worth something, which implies a sin right there, the belief that you're not worthy as it is. And so all of those things healed will suddenly make you move to a much higher frequency.
Well, I mean, that lie that that's a Catholic lie, the whole concept of the sin of like you're born with original sin and all this. It's insane.
Right.
It's absolutely insane. How can you do that? But I love your idea of the analogy of the apple tree. Is so beautiful because it really shines a light on how ridiculous we are with ourselves.
Yes.
Because when a lot of time, and I think I could talk for a lot of people listening, they don't know what tree they are yet.
Yes.
They don't know what they're here to give. They don't know what fruit they're supposed to be sharing with people. And they're trying to figure it out. Until then, they're comparing with other trees, and they're like, "Is that the tree?" But once you do figure out what that fruit that you're supposed to give is, that's your mission in life. That is your joy, right?
And the crazy thing is, it's unique to you. You know,
It's your apple.
there's a level that we still, you know, we need to go up and watch self-help and read the self-help books and spiritual books. And there's a level where people are like, I'm the next Eckhart Tolle, or I'm the next this speaker, you know, or whatever. And these concepts are great, but they're here to get you to find the unique one that's trying to come through for you. And, you know, the videos and the contents and all those things are incredible, but the highest content there is the silence, because the silence will come in and tell you what your next steps are, and it will take out the lies, and it will take out the force, and it will take out the not enoughness, and because none of those are true. And so the more you listen, so the first thing I find to figuring out what your gift is to undo the need to give a gift out for a second and listen. And allow yourself to listen with no distractions, and stop grabbing the phone, stop grabbing the TV, and listen. And you'll start to hear a bunch of pain and callings at the same time. And the pain is the death of the false you that's trying to give their gift out of I'm not enough or I'm not worthy. And a higher you goes, I got you. In fact, I am you. And I love you, and there's nothing you can do to get out of how loved you are. And and it sounds like a corny cliche thing, but it's really real. And the more I do this thing, the more I find even the one for years that wanted to shift people is a wounded boy. Even the one that wanted people to, you know, it's really deep down, then my dad'll see I'm legit. If I get 10 million people to shift on the planet, then my mom will go, good job. And that has had to be healed for me in the last few years. There's been this space opening of just like, this space has you 24/7. And it's wanting to alchemize these things that are not enough, and I'm unloved and unwanted, because you're trying to be wanted through other people's egos. Right? Through a person seeing you. Then these aren't how this works, right? So it's creating higher space for those to die and a light to just come through. And
you know what I find interesting about you, Kyle, is that you and I both were on parallel paths. Both came out of the Hollywood system. You were a stand-up comic and actor. I was on behind the scenes as a director and a writer and producer and stuff. And both of us went our paths, and we had success.
Yes.
To a certain extent in those worlds.
Yeah.
And we both love that world. You love being a stand-up. I mean, at least it seemed like you really loved the jokes, and you loved the attention.
Yes.
I loved what I did. But there was a point where both of us said, this isn't enough anymore.
Yes.
And in the grand scheme of things, you couldn't have come out as what the work that you're doing now in the spiritual space at 20.
No.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
You needed to go through all the stuff you went through. But then the skill set that you picked up is exactly perfectly built to do what you're doing right now. So for you, the humor that you bring into your teachings, how you help people, you break people down through humor and get like the apple tree analogy is brilliant. That's a stand-up comic idea. That's I've been around you weirdos long enough that I know how you guys think.
Yes.
And that is that's a stand-up comics view on something.
Yes.
But throwing a spiritual twist on it. So it's so beautiful. And with me, I had all this technical experience and ability to do what I'm doing. And that's how I'm able to do what we do with the show and do it so quickly and at scale that we're doing. But we didn't understand what we were doing. We were completely, in many ways, lost in the fog of war, if you will, the fog of our journeys, but only looking back through age and through experience go, oh, I needed to go through those 20 years of working in clubs, and I needed to go 20 years of working on thousands of projects, that I didn't want to work on to get to where I'm at. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I was a stand-up comic starting at 12, and I really was. My dad's uncle was the prop man for the comedian Gallagher, and my grandma was a famous puppeteer. She was on the Carol Burnett show and did amazing different things, and then quit also and ended up speaking on Ascension instead. And one of the things I realized was, as a child, stand-up comedy was my dream career, and I was only watching these comedy shows, and that's all I cared. Kids were watching cartoons, and I'd be watching Evening at the Improv at like 8 years old, and Gallagher specials and different things. And I realized something really profound. My dad, who is really ill right now, when I was a kid, I didn't feel a connection to my dad. I felt like he was shut off, and he worked in the house, and there were a few times that were violent and not safe. And when stand-up comedy came on, my dad changed. And when sitcoms were on, my dad changed. And at one point, being a comic was my highest, but I believe it was to avoid trauma even too. And so I became a comic in order to not get hurt, because if I'm doing stand-up or watching stand-up, I'm not physically hurt. I'm heard, and all of a sudden there's a presence and a connection to my dad. So without even knowing it, I became really ambitious and wanted to be a stand-up comedian. And I did it for 20 years. And then started finding the beginning of higher through starting with Tony Robbins and then Michael Beckwith and different amazing people that I learned from, finding this higher frequency. The last 5 years has been a shift from I am what I do to I am what I am. This is a really huge deal. It sounds like nothing, but it's most of the time, here's the unconscious question with almost every dilemma that people have. What do I do? Even with meditation, people go, how do I meditate? And so they kick in this identity as a doer. Yeah. And so I realized in the last 5 years something that has changed every aspect of my life. Instead of I am what I do, like I'm identified with my image as a speaker, my image as a comedian, how many people or followers I get, could I let go of my attachment to that and shift to I'm on this planet for one reason, to know what I truly am. And this is so profound, because if I find myself in meditation or even throughout any part of the day asking, what do? I notice that's a pattern that's trying to not get hurt. And I'd rather heal the thing that's scared to get hurt than do as a blockage to that. And so the more I listen to the now, the more I become the now. So at first it was stand-up, and then it was pretty profound to realize you can move to a consciousness that's even bigger than at one point your dream career, right? Like this now was so expansive that being a comedian at one point ran its course, and it had even bigger than what my dharma was from being a child. It turns out my dharma is so much bigger than the shift of careers, or now I'm this career. I must be something more. I must be a constant expansion, right? And the old lie on our planet is you are what you do. If you think of like the 30s and the 40s, like a lot of people that have been married for like 70 years, they could do it out of I am what I do. I am this marriage. I fought in World War II. I'm these things. But if you ask them about their feelings, many of them they don't want to go there, right? So there's a lot of trauma that's stored in those old units of what I do. So the more I go, I am what I am, I'll give up anything. A thing I said once in a meditation on an ayahuasca is merge me with my soul no matter what the cost. And that was the beginning of a releasing of people in my life that I didn't align with. That was the beginning of releasing of attachment to my career, my image. And that was the beginning of COVID, was like right after that. And I thought, did I do this? Because
you did.
As I open up and go, merge me with my soul, show me the world, all of a sudden we're all in our houses wearing masks. I was like, did I just ask to go deeper? And it just shifted everything.
Right.
But shifting from I am what I do to I want to know what I am. What I am comes with all the doing. It'll give you a next step. It'll give you the guidance. It'll give you a releasing. It'll give you the healing. But we'd rather heal first before we do. Than be a wounded thing sitting on top of a bed of trauma trying to fix stuff on the external. That's actually an addiction looking like help.
I love this idea that you just said, the bed of trauma, because we all have. None of us get out of this without us being unscathed. You come in here, you're going to have, just coming in, it's traumatic.
Yeah.
Generally speaking.
On the planet or the studio?
Both, sir. No, just coming into the planet, just the birthing process is traumatic. You're coming in through trauma. So many of us try to fix a house with a foundation that is completely unstable.
Yes.
And that's why we continue to fail. That's why people who will continue to watch shows like this, who will read books and read spirituality books and self-help books, and they just obscene and just keep going and going and going.
Yeah.
But they're just basically moving the chairs around in a house, or maybe even knocking a wall down or two in a house that's completely on a foundation that's cracked and unstable, so it doesn't actually do anything. It doesn't feel like anything until you take everything down to the studs, re-pour the cement, but you can't re-pour the cement until you break open the other one, get that other stuff that's rotted or bad or cracked out, lay it in, and then you can start building on that. Would you agree?
There's so much false energy in all of our bodies. And that's what's trying to come to light. The belief, any limitation at all is a lie. Any I am a warrior, I am not enough, I am, and then you create a doing to fix this lie, right? So I'm not enough, but when I make $1 million, I'm not enough, but when someone sees me or when my mom says good job, right? That's why one of the things I'd offer people watching this podcast and everyone that you do is to couple the content that you hear with an hour of listening afterwards. Because what you can do when you just hear content is get excited in the mind about what your future is going to be as another addiction to not look at what's in here. And the second we each start going, okay, I'm watching this content and it's amazing, but it also is the same as going to a gym and watching people work out. And then explaining you can work out too. And then you go, look how good I am at watching other people talk about working out. And then you go back into all your addictions and problems. But if people watching this podcast after it, listen for an hour, like really listen to how this applies to you and not just put us on pedestals and say to themselves, I want to know what the content that just came through, how does it apply to me? And allow themselves to listen. You will start to see, oh, the me that was trying to get somewhere else maybe was out of I'm not enough or I'm scared or people won't like me. These are traumas, and then you'll heal those. And the second they go away, they're replaced by light, and you move up in frequency. And that higher frequency you can do so much more than the one that hustles 14 hours a day and goes, I have to do all out of this fix, right? So getting those things and the foundation that you were talking about built is the key to the whole thing. Because most of us, almost everything we're doing right now is a house that is not poured in cement that could fall over at any minute.
And it does quite often fall.
And that's why when things are falling apart, people think that's bad. And I would say, get excited. The only thing that can fall apart is your false house. The only thing that can fall apart is a false you. The only thing that can fall apart is a limitation. The truth of what you are is never falling apart. So anything that can fall off of you wasn't you in the first place. So get excited because it's making room for the true you to birth. And what you actually are is miraculous. And it literally needed to remove that thing. And our problem is we keep thinking the thing it removed is still us. So we're longing for this one thing that left. But it's like, no, let life remove what it needs to from you. It might need to put you in a ton of debt because maybe you thought you were your money. And it needs to take your money away to show you you're enough without it. It might need to get you to get that you're whole as is. So it might break up a relationship to get you to be present for it. So if anything's falling apart, bring love to it. Bring appreciation for what it used to be, but know it's making space for what's trying to emerge. Michael Beckwith taught me that. That changed my life. What's trying to emerge? With everything happening, even in the world, oh my God, all this darkness is coming up. There's a World War III on the way, all these different things. There could be a civil war. What's trying to emerge? Stay in the higher frequency. A false us is falling apart.
And when you say what's trying to emerge, the first thing that comes into mind is that thing we just spoke about, the birthing process.
Yes.
In
everything's a birthing process.
Yeah. If you look at, the birth of a child, if you have no idea, you're an alien and you're seeing this, all you're seeing is screaming, yelling, blood everywhere. They're like, this person is dying.
Yes.
If you didn't understand that there was a baby actually coming, something was trying to come through.
Yeah, what if you didn't know there was a baby coming?
It looks
You just
insane.
be like, my stomach's growing. It's
just insane. And it would look absolutely insane and traumatic. Like, why would anyone go through this?
Yes.
And that's exactly what not only we're going through internally, but also the world is kind of going through this very messy, painful process. But what's going to come out the other end is the beauty. What is trying to come out?
Yes.
And when a lot of this stuff, you and I are both of similar vintage. So, we've been around for a minute. When I was growing up, I didn't see these kind of things happening. I mean, we had our own crazies in the 80s. Yeah. We thought we were going to die from the Russians were going to drop their bombs and stuff like that. And all of that. The 90s had its own flavor. The 2000s had their own flavor. But I never saw this kind of disruption with, racists would usually be very quiet in the corner. Maybe a racist joke here or there. You'd hear somebody in a party. but you never would see that as the front-facing way that they addressed the world and being very proud of that. I never saw that before. You know, like on their social media platform, they're just literally saying, this is how I am. This is my feeling. This is my truth. Being racist against everybody. I was like, you never, ever heard anything like that growing up. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think the way I see it is imagine in the 80s, because we are kind of similar. Imagine that the lens that we were looking through was really small, and the highest we knew is we are what we do. So, so if you are what you do, the most thriving people are entrepreneurs and people that are measured based on success and financial wealth and everything like that. Now, those things can happen, but there might be a ton of trauma under that there's no light asking you to look at. You're happy enough with your circumstances, which actually means also we were very selfish because there was suffering all over still in the 80s. But there was no reason to look at that or anyone else. It was all just like the lens is this. So imagine that in the 80s, your house was a one-story house and it was all clean, right? If you took a camera through your house, your internal house, it's one story. Once 2012 happened, imagine that might be the beginning of seeing maybe there's more to this house. And then 2020 is like you pull the carpet back and there's a door going to a lower level of your house. So there's a second story. But it's full of rats and dead bodies and all this different stuff, right? So the good news is you actually have a house that's twice as big. The bad news is there's a bunch in here we have to clear out. So if the light, so in the 80s, we just had this like, I rock because I'm just the first floor of this building. And and now we're on an elevator. And in the elevator, it's looking down floors and it goes, oh, that's my future. But then the next day it's a new floor. And that's why people are having a hard time starting projects and stopping them. So many people are like, this is the answer to my life. And then the next day your consciousness changes and you're in a higher frequency. And that's what I believe a timeline is. Have you heard people talk about timelines?
I was going to bring up timelines in a minute. Don't worry. Yeah.
So imagine a timeline is like a past and future, like I'm the first floor of a building. That's the answer to my life. So in the past, we looked in terms of past and future, and we were happy if we had a future we could measure. I can see that I'm locked into this job. I can see I have enough money to live forever. I can see that I have a relationship. I'm married. So your happiness is still based on a false addiction to the future, right? That you always know what the future is going to be. And the only thing freaking us out right now is we can't see what our future is. But we're not supposed to. The true us is supposed to live in the now. So imagine God took you from an unconscious attachment to the future. And now it turns out your future is a byproduct of your now, and that we're moving up in elevators. So we're switching timelines. That's why if someone makes a prediction for 6 months from now, I'm like, we don't know that that's true because you looked down the lens of a timeline. But in 6 months from now, we're going to go up in the elevator and we're going to have a different future, passing a different future, passing a different future. So it moves in this exponential way where there's no past and future anymore, and we're just kind of on an elevator. That's why our job is to just sit here and let the elevator release your attachment to floors, your attachment to circumstances, your attachment to past and future, and it'll create a future that's magical, but the future never will come because it's only now. So as we go up in the elevator, it's going to be more and more fine because the future won't be tainted with these lies in our body of unworthiness and not enough. So you won't believe what can be done through you when you release the need to be the doer and be attached to that floor. Did that make sense?
It does. It does make sense. I've always said that the insanity of humanity in general is that we're all like Shakespeare said, this is a stage and we are all merely players on it. Our insanity is that we believe that we are not Heath Ledger, but we're actually the Joker. That we go on, we come out, we do the play, but Heath was able to take the makeup off, take the suit off, and go home and be Heath.
Yeah.
We still believe that we're the Joker.
Yeah.
And the actor Heath is actually our higher self.
Right.
You know, we use the video game analogy, Mario or Zelda or something like that, or Link or something like that. In the same manner, but that insanity of attaching ourselves to the character that we're playing is very much the doer. Yes. I remember, like, when I was growing up, if my filmmaking career was not going the way I wanted it to, I was miserable because I associated my entire existence to that job I did. You know, now if I didn't have a podcast, I didn't have this, you know, I know who I am at the end of the day. You know, I want to be a father, I want to be a husband, so on and so forth. But it is still these are different parts that I play, but I know who I am.
Yes.
I'm not attached wholeheartedly. If I don't get the numbers I want,
Right.
I'm not going to cry. I'll be like, hey, what can we do? But overall,
Yeah.
my whole world is not wrapped around this.
If you in the old days when you were doing the movies, fill in this blank, and because this is something I ask people when people are going, I have to do this, I have to make this business happen, I have to make this. I always ask this question: fill in this blank. If this doesn't happen, like if you go broke, if that person leaves you, if everyone doesn't like you, I am what? Right. So if I ask you that with the movies, if you don't. In the old days, if I couldn't get the movie to go, or if I couldn't get the actor, or everything fell apart, I am what? I am not enough. I'm
a failure.
unloved.
Failure.
I'm a failure. So
Back then, absolutely.
starting in 2020, I started getting really excited about the idea of becoming a light for the deepest fear that's inside. So I did it by having people say like that. They'd say, well, my biggest fear is becoming a failure. I'd have them say to the pattern, you're allowed to be a failure in my body. This is a profound change, because the idea of I'm scared to be a failure is the belief that I'm not loved if I fail. But what if even if you fail, you're totally loved? See, the pattern never heard that, because if you had a parent that said, do not fail, or they did that to themselves and you picked up their pattern, then you suddenly have this thing that says, I can't fail because I won't be enough, or I'll not be loved. And if you start to say to the pattern in your body for people that are scared to be alone, lost, unloved, unwanted, hurt, whatever, tell them, if you start to say the pattern, you're allowed to be a failure in my body. The failure energy suddenly realizes it's loved. Then it comes to light and leaves. And then it's replaced by light. So these patterns that I can't be a failure, these things are all coming to light right now. And it can come to light really quickly if you say to the pattern, you're allowed to be whatever the deepest fear is. You're allowed to be abandoned. You're allowed to have everyone hate you. You're allowed to disappoint others. This is where love comes in and alchemizes that energy.
Where do you see... There seems to be a lot of fear, tremendous amount of fear going on right now.
Isn't that exciting that we see it?
No, we do see it.
Because that fear was there in the 80s, but no one saw it. Right. Do you get what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
Like the lens is bigger. So if people are feeling fear right now, the reason is because their light is bigger. Their lens is bigger. So the fear isn't anything other than coming up right now. And we can't numb it anymore. You can't just go to an addiction. Right? You have to actually hear the fear. My favorite band, Here's the Fears. Welcome to your...
I don't have the rights for that, sir. Please.
Yeah, sorry. That's the short. I have to sing it that shortly.
I don't want to get banned.
But if you imagine if we started thinking every time, man, there's so much fear here, like in my body or in the world. And I'm going, how awesome is that? It's seen right now. You get that? You're the lens that's seeing that. So people see, like, people don't understand this government. You hear a lot of people say, I wish other people would wake up to it, but everyone's saying that now. So what I find is this is happening, but we're all seeing it. So instead of looking at the bad thing that's happening, get excited about the fact that we're seeing it, because seeing it is what alchemizes.
But how do you, so I was talking to some friends this weekend, and they were like asking me what the psychics and the channelers and the mystics that have come on the show, what do they see for the future? And I would tell them, like, look, my opinion from everyone I've talked to is this, and this are going to happen. And we've kind of mentioned a little bit, it's going to be a rough ride because we're going through this birthing process.
Yeah.
But it's going to be completely fine. We're all going to make it in the end, but it's going to be a bumpy ride. And their first initial reaction was, how do we hedge against it? If the economy is going to crash, what do we do? Like, I go, buy gold, toilet paper, and bullets. Like, that's like, what do you want me to tell you? And canned goods. Like, what do you? But it came from a place of fear,
right?
Automatically.
And those solutions can be helpful and also are out of fear.
Right. Well, toilet paper is very helpful.
Yeah.
Just get a bidet.
Yeah, I was just going to say, get a bidet. Bidet is love. Toilet paper's fear. Bidet is love.
Hashtag bidet is love. Toilet paper is fear.
I know that's going to be your title.
That's going to be bidet is love. Toilet paper is your fear. Absolutely. I had a bidet during the pandemic. Life was good.
Yeah, life was fine.
They're very cheap nowadays.
Yeah. It's true.
It's very true. But during the pandemic, there was so much fear. We were fed.
Yeah.
My God, you remember on I was watching, I think multiple news outlets, there was like a death count.
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah.
And then if you actually looked at the numbers, there were more people dying of cancer.
Right.
There were more people dying of pneumonia.
There were also 800, I don't know the exact number, but something like 800,000 kids missing, there's all kinds of other statistics you can put up.
But they were it was just this.
Right.
So, and I think the pandemic really showed.
They all played their cards too much.
Everyone's, from the media to the news to religion to healthcare to all of them really showed a lot. It really brought up a lot of stuff.
One of the things that's trying to fall apart in this time is control.
Yep.
Because control's not the truth. This is a time of surrender. And there are so many ways that we pretend that we're bringing light, but it's still control. Like sometimes people say, I'm going to follow my highest. And then they'll say, but it didn't work. I've had people say, Kyle, I followed my highest calling, but it didn't work. And I go, that's not surrender at all. That's control, because you leapt for your highest and then expected a result. You expected a certain outcome. Yes. And you leapt so that you could get something. So you're really turning God into your butler. You're telling God what you want.
But The Secret told us we could do that.
Right. And that was a great service in 2006.
Correct.
Do you get what I'm saying? The consciousness back then was, I'm in a victim state. Something like The Secret and motivational seminars are great to move you up in vibration to start to realize you can change your thinking. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people are making a mistake of trying to use those methods now while so much more darkness is trying to be seen. So if you're only thinking positive, while there's all this darkness of unloved energy, you're just using that as an addiction and denialism as an escape, and it won't have the same consciousness as it would have in 2006 when those things were expansive. Now that thinking is contracting.
Correct.
Right? And for you to think so you can manifest something still implies the thing you're trying to manifest is bigger than you and is the answer to your life. And one of the mistakes we make is we think anything that we want is bigger than us.
Right.
Like money, for instance. Mm-hmm. So many people think money is bigger than you, but you made every dollar you've ever had. So get excited about you. What you are is worth so much more than money. There's only one of you. There's a lot of money out there, and they're printing it like crazy, so it's worth nothing. And
that's another podcast.
Yeah.
For another time.
And you're thinking it's bigger than you, so you're shrinking your vibration to that you are this thing that's just now IOUs being passed around, when you were the source of every dollar you made. So instead of going, this is my God, get excited about you and stop chasing money, chase you. And the byproduct will be you will have a foundation that gets that you are abundance, and money has to chase that. But don't do it so you can get that, because that still implies that money's bigger than you. Understand that everything that you want is not bigger than you. You got to get to a place where you understand that what you are is the profound connection.
But the thing is, was so hard, Kyle, is like when we were talking about this before we started the show, is when I started this show, I was at a place where I did it for a little while, then I stopped doing it, and then Connie, my spirit guide, kicked me in the butt and said, you got to get going now. And then I took a leap. That same leap you were talking about, somebody else, my truth, whatever that is. I took that leap. But the difference was, and this is the first time, one of the first times in my life that I did this, I had no attachment to outcome. I just said, I'm just going to grind, and I'm just going to do my work, and I'm going to just, it's in somebody else's hands. I'm just going to do the work.
Yes.
And that was the significant difference, where so many, and there's people on YouTube, on podcasters, they're always associating, I need this many subscribers, I need this many likes, I need this many followers.
Yes.
And a lot of people ask, how did you do what you're doing with the show? I'm like, I have no attachment truly to outcome. I would look, we all want as many people to watch us and many people to enjoy the work that we do. But and I will do everything I can on my end to help that process along.
Yes.
But not control it, because I understood when this show took off 2.5 years ago, I was not in control, because I had never changed.
Yes.
The show, from the day before the first episode took off to the day after the next episode took off, I had done nothing different.
Right.
It's not like, I did this new technique and no. And then every month that I kept going up, I was like, I'm not running this train.
Yes.
I might be putting the coal in the engine, pushing it through, but where this train's going is not in my control.
Yes.
And that was a very big enlightening moment to me. It was the first time in my life go, oh, there is a universe. There is something else behind this. There's something else guiding this.
Yes.
I have to do my part. I have to show up.
Yes.
I have to do the work. But the outcome it's still not within my world.
Yeah.
But I've just kind of let it go. Would you agree?
I agree. And I think that what I think the factor was from what you're saying is that you were evolving when you, like, to me, that's the number one factor. Mm-hmm. So there's a way that I see things that has really helped me, especially in the last 10 years, is I believe that everything in our lives we can feel will either expand us and move us closer to what we truly are, or contract us and keep a pattern going. So every second we have this feeling, sometimes a voice will come through and it'll show up like this. It'll be like, what if I left this company? What if I asked the person out? What if I wrote the book? What if I let go of this? What if I moved to Italy? It shows up with these open-ended callings, right? Mm-hmm. And you can't see what the results will be because you've never done it, right? So you have to move based on a feeling of expansion, and it'll feel like an opening. That feeling is a preview. It's saying this is a higher you calling you and saying, move towards this. And then whenever that shows up, the ego part of you needs to kick in and come up with why you shouldn't.
Right.
Because you're about to do something that's going to actually move you towards you and probably heal aspects of you. And what you're going to heal is trying to stay alive. So this portal shows up and goes, I know the next step. And it makes no sense. And if you ask other people about it, right? If you ask other people about it, they're not feeling the calling you're feeling. So they might try to stop you.
You mean like
right?
the spiritual comedian?
Right. Yes. Yes.
What if
dude, when I left stand-up and started doing this, the whole comedy community thought I was crazy.
Right.
You know,
same
and
here.
Every time I leave something, I get attacked and there's all this stuff, right?
Sure.
And so this thing comes out and it'll go, this will happen. And then this reason that's really stupid comes up with why you shouldn't, and it's trying to keep you in the small self. Mm-hmm. So here's an example. You could have this feeling like, what if we left this company right now? Mm-hmm. And then the second you goes, well, if you do, we can't go to the Cheesecake Factory party next Thursday.
You're right.
Right? Yeah, and it's like, yeah. And then this first voice can't tell you this, but it's like, dude, if you'd follow me, you'll own all the Cheesecake Factories in a month. I got all kinds of stuff for you. And the second voice is like, yeah, but they have those Thai lettuce wraps.
And the breadsticks.
Right. So do you notice this voice can measurably see what you'll stay with? It can see what you keep.
And it's concrete.
Right. So you see evidence, and a lot of people are scared to move forward because you don't get any evidence. You actually just feel a feeling, an intuition. And so you either move based on your soul or you move based on your fear. And when you follow the fear, the opportunity goes away. And when you follow your soul, the fear goes away. And so for me, I've had so many moments where I followed the opening and the soul calling. And then the byproduct is the fear goes away. And it moves me into that. And the more the fear goes away, it's replaced by more magic, more next steps, more God, more worthiness, more love. And then the podcasts get better, or the content gets better, or the answers get better. Now, if you keep following the fear and staying in the old frequency, you're now in the old story. And the old story is a road that goes nowhere every time. And it's going to try to come up with egoic solutions to fix itself. And what we'd rather do is we follow the calling. And so when you created this podcast, it was kind of a vision that no one else knew what you were talking about, right?
I didn't know what I was talking about. It was an idea given to me by my spiritual teacher, who saw it.
Right.
And she's connected to the other side, so she completely saw it very clearly. It's as insane as a comedian going into the spiritual space as a filmmaker, a filmmaker who has a filmmaking podcast, a number one filmmaking podcast, to jeopardize that, to open up a spiritual podcast, which will have 0 followers, 0 credibility, 0 anything. It's insane, sir.
There was a moment maybe 3 years ago or so that one of the things I do with people is I hold space for them to heal the old traumas. And very often my demographic is similar to my mom, because a lot of what I do is trying to convince my mom that I'm legit through my audience. So quite a bit of my audience are 50, 60-year-old women sometimes, right? Mm-hmm. Very recently, by recently, a year or 2 or 3 ago, I don't remember what it was, but I was with a group of women helping them feel their feelings, right? And they were healing this stuff. And I'm saying this because if you showed the 24-year-old me who was doing stand-up and did movies, 10 Things I Hate About You, all these different things, if you asked the 24-year-old, where do you want to be when you're 43 or whatever I was, he'd be like, I want to be doing stadiums as a comic. This is a great example of timelines, right?
Yes.
The 24-year-old saw a future where I was the next Bill Burr or something awesome like that. And even though I love those guys and got to work with those guys, something for me that was very different started birthing, right? So it's funny because the me back then, if you showed him what it was going to be, is hilarious compared to what was actually trying to birth. And it's almost like fast tracking you to moving from this world of what you want to what God wants for you. That's the big shift right there. Because when you start following expansive callings, you start to hear what it wants for you. And so in the old secret times, in the vision board times, we're putting up what we want. I want this mansion. I want the Lamborghini or whatever.
The bicycle.
The bicycle.
Yes,
everything I had on a Trapper Keeper in the 80s.
Trapper Keeper.
Remember that?
Wow.
Yeah. I realize there's certain things there's sentences nobody's ever said. And one is, we're sold out of Wilford Brimley Trapper Keepers.
Who, by the way, Wilford Brimley, same age in Cocoon
as Tom Cruise's.
No, as Paul Rudd is now.
Wow. I know. That's pretty cool to be like born an old man.
He was
right?
he was born with that mustache.
He's like
no question.
born and like, start me with Quaker Oats commercials and we'll see. Came out in overalls with a hay thing.
Oh my God, he was great.
Yeah, but I forget what I was saying, but it's so funny how this podcast literally is like, shift from what you want to what God wants. 2 seconds later, Wilford Brimley.
Remember, and Trapper Keepers.
Right. But that's the huge shift, is when you start following these callings, you realize the ego was wanting those things. And what we're here now to do and why we're all falling apart is because the ego is collapsing. So when you start listening to callings and go, okay, I'll birth Next Level Soul as a podcast, you don't know what it'll look like. You're literally shifting from what the ego wants to what God wants. And when you follow what God wants, it has to gently kill the ego, because the ego is not in charge anymore. And so the shift in my life has been moving from vision boarding myself, motivation, seeing the outcome. We'll have 1 million people on following this and fill theaters, to literally following invisible callings and going, okay, what do you want? And it starts just being, it moves me from a world of motivation and push to letting go. Everything in the last 5 years has been about letting go. Any motivation doesn't work now because it's actually control. Mm-hmm. Having an agenda to, I want to even heal the world or shift millions of people, is control. And the more I let go, the more I just find I want to be healed. And I want to even let the one go that has to shift the planet. And I think the byproduct will be a bigger impact, but that's not up to me. So when we start to shift from what do I want, that's old self-help. And people are confused on that because people are like, I'm trying to figure out what I want. That might, if you can't find it, that might be because you're at a frequency that's too high for the contracting energy that knows the answer to what you want. Because usually that's out of trauma. I want to know what I want so I'm not wasting my life. I want to know what I want so I'm not unworthy. No. What does God want right now? Even people watching this, it could be just to let go, could be to quit something, could be to say goodbye.
So I'll play devil's advocate here. I agree with everything you say, but I'm going to play devil's advocate here. If someone listening is going to go, well, what do you mean by let go, Kyle? What do you mean by like let things fly? And like, I have to pay my bills.
Yeah.
I want to do this or do that. You and I both ran away for the circus.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yes.
We're oddballs to begin with. But a lot of people who's like, I want to be a musician. I want to make a living as a musician. I want to make a living as a writer.
Yeah.
Or I want to start that little cupcake company that I always wanted to start. Or all these kind of things. But there are blocks to all of those things. How can you make a living as a musician? There's so many broke artists out there. Or a writer, for God's sake. God, a screenwriter. It's insane. What would you suggest to people who are trying to kind of digest what you're saying?
Yes.
But the reality of their world and their and listen, we all got to pay bills.
Yes.
We have families to support,
Totally.
all that stuff.
Yes.
So how can we go through this process without jeopardizing everything?
Well, I would say one of the things you just said is this point that I see a lot. When I talk about letting go, people say that. We got to pay bills. What about all these different things? One of the things I want to offer is for people that I've noticed, I've had a lot of one-on-ones. I do tons of one-on-ones with people. They'll say, Kyle, I'm working 50, 60 hours a week and I can't pay the bills. And I want to point out, right, that's not working. Egoic force isn't working. So when people hear these points, they go, Kyle, I want to pay the bills though. And I go, do you notice that the egoic way of force and hustle isn't working anymore? Because it's not based on the truth. So as we do this more and more, we start to realize, wait, the egoic way I'm trying to do it also isn't working. So I don't get why it gets so much credit, but actually following your soul doesn't. I have found following my soul brings a lot of abundance because it connects me to the field of I am abundance. And that creates a space for it to come to you. So if we take in this idea that force isn't working, because I'm all about abundance, but you can't do it without a true foundation. If you think abundance is the answer to your life externally, but deep down you have all these traumas and stories based on your childhood that say money's the root of all evil, or I'm not enough, or you're never going to make enough money, or any sentence that you heard an angry parent say, you're not going to have any foundation to keep the money, to receive it. And if you're still in your patterns, you're going to spend a ton of your money on addictions. A lot of our money goes to addictions. I got to get the most expensive car so I look good to people. I got to buy alcohol. I got to, buy all these expensive dinners. I got to overeat. And then we spend way more money than we have to because we're not connected to the highest form of happiness, which is ourself. We find it's in addictions and all these old things that are all used to help you deflect from God.
Kyle, all I have to tell you is this is very un-American. Everything you're saying is very un-American, very...
We're making a new America.
Very anti-capitalist. I'm just saying.
Oh, no, I'm totally in the capitalist world. I
know.
But imagine the frequency of also the capitalism being coming through a higher guided you.
Oh,
versus, right?
No, I agree with you 100%. There's... because, I always sat there thinking, deep thoughts with Jack Handey.
I love deep thoughts, dude. My favorite one is, my favorite deep thought was, if you saw two guys named Hambone and Flippy, which one would you think liked dolphins the most? I'd say Flippy, wouldn't you? You'd be wrong, though. It's Hambone.
Amazing.
I love when something goes from a hypothetical to factual. You're wrong. It's Hambone.
Anyone listens, Jack Handey thoughts, Deep Thoughts with Jack Handey was an SNL skit back in the day, in the 80s. I think it was 80s or 90s.
Yeah.
I think it was late 80s that it came out. I just remember as like Deep
They're
Thoughts
so funny.
with Jack Handey.
Yes. It's so weird because it's kind of a spoof of what I became.
Right.
Like I post literal shorts now with rivers and me talking.
You're this generation's Jack Handey.
Yes, but I'm actually the joke versus making a joke about it. Like
you are the punchline.
I'm what Jack Handey was preemptively, psychically making fun of 30 years ago.
And I wanted to ask you because this transition you've gone through.
Yes.
It wasn't easy. It wasn't an easy transition, and when you decided to let go and to find this happy place that you're in right now. And when I say happy place, I know it's not all rainbows and cupcakes. It's been a journey, and it's been a rocky one to get all this stuff up and all this kind of stuff. But one of those big things that people are terrified about is losing people around them. Losing family, losing friends, losing colleagues, being ridiculed, being ousted, which is one of the core fears of a human being, being thrown out of the tribe. If you're thrown out of the tribe, you die. It is really hardwired into our amygdala, if you will, back in the reptilian brain. Hence why more people are afraid of public speaking than they are of death.
Yeah.
Because of
Isn't that weird?
Of that fear. That fear is that powerful.
And it also shows how much of us are the ego, because the ego cares much more about what people think about them
than death.
But that is death if they don't like me. Right. Isn't that weird in itself?
Like you have to go through something else to get to the same place.
It also shows how not true it is.
Correct.
It makes it make no sense. Like if you're less scared of physical death than looking bad in front of a group of people, that must be an old pattern in itself. So just take in that it must not be the truth. It still needs to be heard and alchemized. It doesn't make any actual sense.
No.
So if you become present and see a pattern that says, I'm scared about what people think about me, or I'm scared about losing someone, what you're actually saying is those things complete me, which really means you think you're incomplete. And that pattern of incomplete energy just needs to be seen. The more you're scared of losing people, the more you're actually aiming for it. Whatever you're scared of has to come to light. This is a really big revelation I've had because it's not true. All fear is not true. It still needs to be heard and seen. So it's true in that respect that it's there and it's legitimate to be seen, but it's not true. If a person has a bunch of fear in them, it has to come out. It comes out one of two ways. This is a horrifying revelation. You can identify the fear internally and you can hear it until you finally get to the core wound that caused it, and it can come out. Or you can repress it and life will make the thing you're scared of happen so that you can finally let go of it that way. Like if you're really scared of everyone not liking you and then you face that everyone doesn't like you, finally you'll get used to it and you'll have to let go of it, right?
Well, but you were trained that way as a stand-up. Like you literally would go up and you'd bomb. I'm sure you bombed at one point or another.
I was lucky because I started at 12. So by the time I was
You were
working
bombing?
at 18, I had the empathy laugh at 12, 13, 14, 15.
So you honed
By the time I
yourself.
was 18, I was better.
But I'd assume at one point or another, there's people in your
Yeah,
audience
totally.
who did not like you.
Oh, yeah.
And did not like what you were doing.
Yeah.
I saw one of your videos of how you destroyed hecklers back in the day.
Yeah.
Which is one of my favorite things to do. to watch is destroy hecklers.
Yes.
But you had already, you know, as comedians, and I want to dive into this a little bit. I've never spoken about this, but I've had such a unique experience of being around and working with stand-ups. Stand-ups are a very, very unique breed of entertainer.
Yes.
Very unique breed of entertainer. They have, and please correct me if I'm wrong, there is a lot of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of stuff underneath there. But
Yeah.
the one thing I've noticed is they have a tremendous armor around them that has been built up, a really callous skin to protect them from what's being thrown at them on a nightly basis. There's not a lot of open jaw, you know, like really, all of them have this kind of guard up. And they also have dealing with a lot of things underneath. Can you kind of use the comedian, the stand-up, as an example of what we're all kind of going through, but an extreme version? Because they are, you know, I always call them, and we have a lot of common friends and stuff, and I love all my stand-up friends. You know, a lot of them were sad clowns.
Yes.
Very sad clowns.
Yes.
And the funniest people who sold out arenas that I know.
Yeah.
When you got them alone, they were depressed.
Yeah.
They were just, but then they turn it on, you know, and you look at Robin.
I was just going to say Robin.
You look at Robin, what he went through. You look at Richard, Eddie, any of these classic, you know, amazing Lenny Bruce, all these kind of classic stand-ups. They are on stage, just piercing laughter.
Yes.
Piercing laughter. And I've heard them, a lot of them say it was their job to make you hurt because you laugh. So it was like almost like I need to attack you with my comedy until you are like peeing yourself on the floor in pain because you're laughing so hard. That's when they really got off. Do you agree with anything I'm saying?
Yeah, I think that it's a weird thing because we know that alcohol and drugs are an addiction.
There's that too. Yeah.
But one of the things we don't know is there's also very subtle addictions that there aren't commercials for. You know, there's
or
no
groups.
Yeah, there's no parents who worry have children who worry. There's no, you know, this is your brain on procrastination. There's no commercials for.
That's amazing. This is your brain up front. We need to make that commercial. We need to shoot that.
Yeah. And so there's a lot of addictions we have that we're not aware that we have. And one thing is comedic deflection, right? If you look at someone, and I was friends with many comics. I was friends with a comedian that was a legendary, very obese comedian. And if you wanted to help him with his actual health, you know, he'd just have a joke right there and you couldn't, you know, there'd be this quick thing. It's like unconsciously a weapon that you get love for. You literally, I'm going to just say this joke and get love, and then we also don't have to look within.
Correct.
We don't have to look what's here. And Robin Williams, I felt, if you watched his stand-up or watched him riff on a late-night show, it was amazing, but you can feel, I can't get in there. You know, when he's like, oh, look at her, you know, and it's just like, we don't want to actually hear what's under there. And I think that we got to see it a couple times with Good Will Hunting and Dead Poets Society. I mean, I think the greatest thing Robin Williams ever did was Good Will Hunting. I watched
that talk on the bench.
You know, I want to cry thinking of it when he says, you know, you think you know love, but do you know what it's like to look at a woman and feel truly vulnerable? I could feel Robin finally be like, I'm going to let you see what's in here. And I will tell you, one of the things I'm uncovering in me in the last 5 years is so much pain. But I'm so grateful that even though I got the reward of stand-up comedy, and I'm so glad I didn't, I'm probably, if I stayed there, would still find this stuff and bring it to light. So I'm not saying it was a weapon to not, but I'm just glad that I have the awareness to go, hey, I want to know what's inside me more than I need to make someone laugh to avoid what's inside me. And I start to realize when you make jokes, you're making fun of certain things, and it's so good to laugh. It's not great anymore to make fun of things because it's like an accepted form of judgment in certain ways. And inside of me is a boy that's hurting. And I have been, one of the things that's happened to me in the last year with my fiance is what I do is I meditate for a lot of the day. I listen to highest callings. I let go of what doesn't align with me anymore. And then all this pain comes and gets exposed and it's coming to light. And I have to listen to it. I cannot deflect. I cannot go overeat or go do something. What's that?
Can't tell a joke.
I can't tell it, no, because you can feel that actually cutting it off. But I feel something is here to heal right now. It's ready to birth. And what I literally do almost every morning is I sit with my fiance. She puts her hand on my heart. I'll play piano music and I'll just be bawling. It happened this morning.
Wow.
And I start to realize like right now, it's just shedding a false self that's a wounded boy that wants to be loved because he believes he's not. He believes he's not enough because he made God in his mind what his dad was. A lot of us make God our parents. Do you know what I mean by that? When they're like, God will be mad at me if I don't. No, that's your dad.
No, that's the Catholic.
Or that's the Catholic one, right?
Yeah.
Right. That's a God that's based on control. I don't believe God's based on control. I believe God is infinite forgiveness, ultimate love now. And if you want to truly change a habit, you have to bring forgiveness. Like you can't shame your way into changing a habit.
Right.
When you shame your way, you know, you're putting yourself in a prison. And then the only way out of it is to do the behavior again. So guilt and shame will never change it. It keeps you at the same frequency of the problem. But if you realize you're already healed and start to accept it and you're loved, you will start to purge these lies. And you will never be the person that you were in the past that you didn't like because you move, like Bashar would say, into a new timeline of being someone who isn't someone who doesn't do that anymore. They never did. And so we're here to move up in frequency to a healing place that loves you. And I'm so thankful because I got to do stand-up and get laughs. And then as the light went, I went in and was like, there's a lot of pain here and I don't want to live the rest of my life holding it and being funny on the external and being addicted to external approval and completely, you know, watch as this pain comes up louder and louder and numb it with addiction after addiction. You know, this has to come out. And it creates a space of intense vulnerability. Like to be a speaker and tell you there's a boy that hurts every day.
Oh, yeah.
Is a scary thing. But I am really about us not being on pedestals because if you're on this planet, you're healing. I don't care who the speaker is.
But the thing is that when you said that, I don't find that vulnerable. I don't find that weak at all. I find that to be so empowering.
Yes.
And so like you have such a power within yourself.
Yes.
When you speak, it comes through.
Yes.
That authenticity is something that a fake speaker or a speaker who has a mask on,
right,
it won't connect. And I'm finding that more and more people are really looking for that authenticity.
Yes.
They're really looking for that real thing. We've been sold so many different things over the years in lies about our religion, lies about our God, lies about our money, lies about our health, our food, everything. That now people are just like, I just want real.
Yes.
I just want real.
Real and true is the new spirituality.
Absolutely.
True is the spirituality.
Truth, yeah. Actual truth. And you know, I've had people who come to the show in the studio and they meet me. They're like, "Well, you're just like the person on the show." I'm like, "Yeah."
It'd be weird if you were like a Chinese woman.
I wasn't a former life.
It's totally different thing.
But like, you know, imagine if I all of a sudden, I know you've met people like this, that when the camera turns on, like, hey, how you doing? Blah, 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 blah.
And they're like pacing backstage.
And the backstage are like,
yeah,
they're throwing up, or they're being mean to people, and then they could just turn it on and turn it off. I've worked with actors like that could do that magically. But it's not what people connect to anymore. I think
Right.
that's one of the reasons why media is having so much trouble right
Right.
now. Hollywood there's not a connection anymore.
Well, and that also brings up the people, like if someone watching this that's always about, big fake energy to other people, like big smile and all this stuff,
Yeah.
when deep down there's pain.
Yeah.
Like we
like
feel
a stand-up.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so we feel more comfortable with, as we do this inner work with other people who are in that same vulnerability, because
God,
that
yes.
person's changing, right?
Absolutely.
As you do this work, the number one thing I find I want in a friend is someone who's also in the work,
Yeah.
right? Because as I go up in my frequency, anyone that's not is just kind of hiding their light and then moving into an addictive energy, and it becomes dense. It becomes a heavier energy. And so they become more of a protection mechanism of like, how do I look and what do I do? And so as I go up, I just kind of go, the only frequency I want around me is someone else who's also working on themselves, right? So if people are moving up, a lot of times they're trying to convince someone else to go up. If they're not doing it, you have to honor that, because you're going to start to stick to it and you're going to shrink yourself versus expand.
So is this kind of like what we're talking about is a dark night of the soul?
Yes.
Essentially, right?
I'm in love with Dark Nights of the Soul. I love them. The more this stuff comes to light, the more excited I am. I always loved like the Beach Boys, like sadder stuff. Brian Wilson, I think, is someone who's so great at
He's a master.
making you cry and feel. I love movies that just end totally depressing. I think that's so much more realistic.
So Marley and Me?
Yeah. Marley and Me saw it 2 weeks ago. That's so weird you said that. I have a 7-year-old. So,
my kids hated it because of that.
Yeah.
Sorry, spoiler alert.
Yeah. But life has sadness in it.
Of course.
And
the tragedy.
We
The
come
tragedy.
with tear ducts for a reason. And this idea that we're all supposed to only be happy, I find instead of trying to be happy, like if someone feels off, they're often going, what do I do? How do I get happy again? Dude, true happiness is what you feel right now, not trying to change it to happy. Do you get what I'm saying? If you can love what you feel right now, even if it's total sad, total stuck, total scared, total depression, now you're not in resistance to what you feel, which will, as an energy, change it very quickly. So instead of thinking, I want to feel good, think, I want to feel what I feel right now. That is true fulfillment and accepting of every feeling. But what we have is a pattern, thanks to old self-help, that says, I feel off, how do I get happy? And it's like, what if your happiness is hearing the off pattern? What if your happiness is being present for an energy that feels totally unloved and sitting with it? That will move into a space of tears when it's heard, and it will leave, and it will be replaced by this light energy that's here. And you will be more and more whole by being okay with everything you feel and not trying to get things happy. You're not going to believe how powerful you are from that frequency.
One thing I've noticed, and you've mentioned it a couple times in what we've said today, is that the old New Age ideas, the
Yes.
new old spirituality had its place
Yes.
at the time. I've even run up against a couple of walls within the spiritual space because of the way we approach spirituality.
Yeah.
This kind of, having deep conversations with psychic mediums about, when you heard the voices, did you think you were going nuts? These
Right.
kind of like one would have ever in a million years ask those kind of questions.
Right.
But it was all about like, ooh, what are you seeing now, kind of thing. And I'm running up. I've run up against the old guard in many ways, and the new way. I guess you needed someone from outside, like you and me, outside of the space, to kind of look at it and go, no. There's another way. There's a newer way, and I love what you're saying. That before you needed to. I need to go get something, or the old self-help way of looking at things, or the old spirituality, where we're opening up more painful but more powerful ways of evolving and ascending, correct?
Well, I also think the more pain you're feeling, that's good news because it's coming out, right? In other words, your lens is getting so big that you might start seeing all kinds of lies at the same time. Right. And so know that this is a thing I know and have said, but I also know other speakers have said too. There's nothing the universe will give you that's bigger than you can handle.
Of course.
So as you move up in frequency, you're going to start to go, oh my God, it's so overwhelming. But no, there's nothing that it's bringing up that's bigger than what you are. There's actually no past story you have that's bigger than what you are. No matter how much trauma, no matter how big your story is, it's not bigger than what you are in the now, which is why I offer people to stop fighting for your past story. It needs to be heard through the space of what you are. But one thing people say is, I'd love to live in the now, but you don't get what I've been through. And I'm like, if you lived in the now, you'd heal what you've been through. If you start to get what you are, it's bigger. It doesn't matter what huge thing happened to you or tons of things happened to you or how bad your life is. I hear you. I'm not denying that. There's empathy towards that. And join me in the power of this moment and see how powerful you are, because what you are can not only alchemize everything in your life, but the more I do this, I'm starting to go, it's alchemizing the whole world. It's you are the light of the new world that's trying to birth through you. So you are this now, and you have a world that exists through you too. Like we have in our head, there's a Donald Trump and a Joe Biden and a Kamala Harris and our parents in our head. Mm-hmm. And then there's those people outside. Mm-hmm. And so we're sitting here trying to control the ones in our head, the partner in your head, the spouse in your head.
Right.
The more you bring light, those things leave. Mm-hmm. And the more those things leave, you start to move to a wholeness. That light starts to see the whole world and bring alchemizing to that. And I find that the byproduct is when you heal something internally, it absolutely heals on the external. I have a story that happened to me that was so weird. And it's a weird story. When I was in a relationship a long time ago that was wonderful, but didn't align with my soul. Like she was such a sweetheart, but just like my soul felt it, like I had to let go. Mm-hmm. And I had a thing where I didn't want to be abandoned. And we often don't want other people to feel what we're scared to feel. That's why people are like, I don't want people to feel pain. That's because you're scared of feeling your own pain. If you feel through your pain, you'll be a space for other people to heal their pain versus trying to stop them from feeling it.
Right.
Right? So one day I went and did ayahuasca. And I took ayahuasca, and I was scared to abandon this girl, basically, and move forward. So what happened was we broke up, but we still hung out all the time. And I could feel callings that wanted to move into a new relationship at the time, but I was scared to hurt her feelings, right? Mm-hmm. So I do ayahuasca, and I start to get nauseous. And while I do, her head like shows up on a fish that's flapping in my stomach, and I start to see her. And I end up throwing her up. I'm not kidding. I see her flapping in the bucket. So I throw her up, and then I realized I released my attachment. I felt free of her. Like I felt truly free of her. And it's okay if I move forward. Mm-hmm. And the next day, she called me and said she fell in love with someone. I want you to take in, I released my tie to her. Mm-hmm. And then it freed her without me even saying anything to her.
Interesting.
So whatever you want to change on the outside, the more you want it to change, the more it can't, because your resistance to what it is keeping it there. But the more you move into a place of light, it removes your resistance from it. And then it's almost like you stop saying, my ego changes this, but God does. So everything you want to change on the external can only change, I find, when you let go of needing it to change. Mm. Does that make sense?
It does.
The more you move up in light, the more it actually creates a release of the things on the external. And it starts to make miracles happen because the ego is trying to change things because it wants the things to be what it needs to be so the ego can be happy. But when you finally celebrate what is and move up in frequency, your resistance to what's happening in the outside world starts to fall apart. And then the thing can change.
Interesting. You know, as you were saying that thought came to my head that, you know, as I've been kind of evolving through this show and just throughout my life, I used to really be attached to, you know, presents and gifts and Christmas and all that stuff, where now I almost dread it because I'm like, I don't want any, like I'm a horrible gift acceptor. I love giving gifts, but I can't.
I knew that about you, so I didn't bring anything.
Thank you, sir. We're just really, I'm a bad gift acceptor, and it's not even that. It's like, it's not because I don't appreciate the token or the energy behind it, and that's something that's different if it's something meaningful or personal. I get that, that's fine, but just to like it's Christmas, gotta
Mm-hmm.
get 5 gotta get 5 presents to doing this. Like my kids, I was like, what do you want? I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't want anything. So I've started to let go of a lot of those things where before I was really holding on to them. And then the other thing I've noticed as I've continued to evolve through my own journey is the kind of media that I'm intaking. You know, things that I used to like watching, I can't. Like if it's super violent now, I'm like, I can't. I really can't. It's not connecting with me the way it used to.
Yeah.
In my brain, Bloodsport was awesome. I remember Bloodsport being an amazing film. Jean-Claude was an amazing actor. I saw it when I was in high school. All of that stuff, and I would go back, and I'm like, if I start watching this again, I'm going to ruin that memory of it.
Yeah.
Or any of these wonderful 80s films that were at that time perfect for the world and for us. Those movies don't play today. Imagine Predator.
Yeah.
Or like there are movies like that, but they don't have the kind of.
Well, it's a good example of why Hollywood's falling apart.
It doesn't know what.
It's almost like what you're saying is we wouldn't just use that with you. I think that's happening with a ton of people. Mm-hmm. Our vibration is too high. It's too much of a contrast to feel the energy of picking up and watching just violence for no reason. It's a weird thing to watch a movie at all. It's like I'm going to watch a bunch of people simulate a story that never happened where everything goes to crap and then back to normal again. It's a weird 2 hours.
It is, but can be transformational.
Yeah.
In your life. Like you watch Shawshank.
Yeah.
And that movie.
It's a great movie.
I mean, you watch The Matrix.
Yes.
You watched Green Mile. Like you watch these kind of films and they feed the soul.
Yeah.
In many ways. Now, mind you, and I use The Matrix in there. Matrix is a violent film. But it's a simulated violence, and it's inside of a matrix construct, so you're kind of separated from it in a way. Yeah, I was looking at it, there's violence, there's action, there's fighting, but I can watch The Matrix without a problem because I understand the message that it's coming through. I mean, that movie has so many layers, it's not even funny. But it's a really fascinating thing. Like I just watched all 3 of them again recently. I had no problem. Like I see different layers in it now.
Yeah.
But it's not like watching an old 80s Canon Films, ninja film.
Yeah.
Back in the day. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Totally. At one point, I even found, even though Matrix at one point was a ladder rung that helped me move forward, for me, it's actually smaller now. In other words, like I find for myself, like it's almost starting to be just listen. It's like Course in Miracles or silence. It almost feels like, God, that was so necessary to move us up and was such an incredible movie. It's one of my favorite movies, Matrix. Mm-hmm. And I notice if I watch it now, I'll still feel a contracting.
Interesting. Because
it's a great story of this journey. You're the one, but the one exists within all of you.
That's why I attached so much to it because of that. It's a perfect example of not only the idea of the simulation and of the Maya and that whole idea, but basically the evolution of the one to find out who you truly are.
The 3 matrices are also a great representation of the timeline of a bad relationship, because the first episode, it's really good.
It's excellent.
The second one, you don't get what's going on, and the third one is just fighting.
It does pretty much. It's pretty much.
Right.
So that's actually really good. But you need the second one.
Yeah, you need the second one
to connect.
I don't know what the hell's going on. Because that's what I felt with Matrix too. I'm like, what's happening? And then the third one's just fighting.
I mean, there's the 2 white albino guys.
Yeah, what are they? Yeah.
The good action sequence.
Yeah.
No, the one is that's a perfect film for what it is. It's like watching Back to the Future. It's
my favorite.
It's a perfect. The first Back to the Future is a perfect film.
Right.
For me, the second one was like, what's happening?
They were like, let's do that again.
No. The second one was like, what's going on now?
Yeah.
And I love it. Second, what's happening? And then the third one was like, oh, okay. But you can't get to the third without the second.
And in Back to the Future 1's idea of the timeline of the future, 2015 would be flying cars, right? And here we are in 2024 going, well, that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah. But there's different timelines. But they did get a lot right.
Yeah, it's true.
They did get a lot right.
Yeah.
In that, I'm still waiting for my hoverboard though.
Right.
But which does exist.
I'm sure Elon Musk has 5 of them.
No, there is an actual. There's an actual hoverboard.
Right.
I saw it actually working, and they were doing it on a pipe and everything.
Yeah.
It's not nearly as cool as the one in Back to the Future 2. It's a little clunkier, bigger, but it's there. It's not hitting the mass market anytime soon.
Those are the best movies. They're phenomenal.
But that vibration, I love what you're saying, is that media has to evolve, and Hollywood, I don't think it can.
I don't think it can.
In its current leadership, corporate structures, it's not like so. Let's go back for a second. In the '60s, Hollywood was falling apart. It was in bad shape. It didn't have VHS. It didn't have cable. It didn't have any other revenue streams other than theatrical, essentially. Okay. And if you were Disney, maybe some merchandising of some Mickey Mouse T-shirts or something along those lines. Hollywood was in trouble, and they really had no idea what to do. Then they said, okay, there's these bunch of kids who are coming out of film school. Let's give the keys to the inmates to run the asylum. And that's when Spielberg, Coppola, Martin Scorsese, the Brat Pack, not the Brat Pack, but the school
the best
brats.
directors,
all that whole generation, George Lucas, that whole generation, they gave them resources and they let them go, and they all were telling authentic stories, and it completely changed cinema forever. After that group of 6 or 7 directors,
which is coincidentally in alignment with all of the boom that happened in the 60s. Like this is the breaking off of conformity in the 40s.
Yeah,
and
it was a deconstruction.
Yeah.
The hippie movement, it was a destruction. But the 70s was a reckoning of that. And then the economy was down, and 70s is a rough decade. It was a rough decade. But in movies, that's when the movies started to come up. And then Hollywood had its boom in the 80s and 90s, which is where everyone comes back now to mind ideas. Why? Because they were connecting at a very deep level.
Yes.
I mean, you go back to watch The Goonies today. That doesn't happen today. Can you imagine green lighting The Goonies? For a major theatrical movie?
Right.
Major theatrical
right.
with the equivalent of $150 to $200 million to make a movie like that, or Gremlins, or any of these kind of little films. But that movement, that opened up a lot. But now it's so fear-based. And Hollywood's fear, it's run by fear. Has been for a long time. I was just there this weekend. I told you I was flying in the same time as you were flying in back here. I was in Hollywood. I went to Warner Brothers. I was walking around, and I was seeing not only basically the whole system is being run or being held up by nostalgia, by the past. It has no idea where to go.
Yeah, like we'll remake this movie again and we'll do it.
But even just the buildings themselves, they were like from the 30s.
Yes.
Literally, I walk into a major soundstage, I'm looking around like, that wall hasn't been changed since the 70s.
Yeah. And it's weird. Those are things like what you're talking about since the 30s and those things. Those are things that we idolize. They were the highest thing. Right. Those movie stars, the John Waynes and those people, right? That was the highest we knew. As we go up, we start to realize those things that we worshipped and put on pedestals are not our gods. And it's weird because as we go up in frequency, we'll start to look at these people that we put on a pedestal as immortal. And that's because they came through looking immortal and we didn't know what their behind the scenes was at all. And we would just be like looking at these Marilyn Monroes and Cary Grants and all these different things and going, that's the answer to my life. And I dare people watching this to not do that with anything, even speakers or anything, and undo the idea of pedestals, because if you put something up on a pedestal, you're taking yourself off of it and you're saying I'm less than. And so Hollywood in some way will have to collapse, especially because quite a bit of it is based on control. There are agendas and there are people within those realms that are going, we need to program people to believe this or get used to this or whatever. And if we take in the idea that in this time, what truly is happening is the flushing out of control, because control is not the truth. So control in terms of people that are controlling. So anyone that has an agenda to control the planet in certain ways, control Hollywood, control the government, that's all coming to light. And the one thing control needs to collapse is have the light on it. So we're moving from a time where our own internal control is falling apart. That's why we're feeling so much pain and fear. We can't control our circumstances. We can't control what is. We can't control anything right now. We can't control what they think of us. We can't control, but that's okay because we're not supposed to. That's just the ego trying to control circumstances so it doesn't get hurt again when it was 5. And if we understand that what's trying to happen is the collapse of control, and anything that's not based on intuitive calling, Hollywood could shift to guided ideas like God would make insane movies through you, but then they lose the control aspect. And if they're still in their ego making movies going, how do we sell a bunch? They're going to start losing money so quickly.
They are.
Because they are losing money so quickly because it's seen through. Think of that. The light is too high for those movies to come out or stay out or control us. They just come out and go right to video now, and we don't choose them. And how many times also, have you noticed this for people watching? I have started a movie so many times and stopped it.
Absolutely.
I've started it's like, this isn't doing it. It would have done it 20 years ago.
Oh, 10 years ago.
10 years ago.
Yeah.
So get excited about if nothing is working in making you happy. That's good. We're losing our attachments to something outside of me makes me happy and moving to my happiness is now. You'll not get it through anything outside of this now. So when control falls out, and it's happening, and that's
Everywhere.
why we're going chaotic.
Everywhere.
And we're going to stop thinking in polarity. Both of the major political sides think the other side is completely evil. Mm-hmm. The control is so bad right now. The Democrats think the Republicans are the most evil thing and vice versa, right? This isn't the truth. It doesn't make any sense. It shows how arbitrary our hate is because we'd all agree on the same thing. But as we move up in frequency, we're going to go, the part of me that doesn't like them doesn't like a part of myself. And that's about to collapse too. And so what births instead is surrender. And if we're in surrender, then God will orchestrate. The real loving God, the aspect, the universe, the true you will create this world. And it'll just be based on creativity. It'll just be on flow, just be on expansion. It will be a bizarre thing when we look back at movies like Bloodsport as a form of entertainment. And
death everywhere.
All of that, But I think a reason we did like those movies is deep down, we are fascinated by death because deeper down, we want the ego to die. And death is not a scary thing. And when we get open, we start to fall in love with death. And I find the more you fall in love with death, I don't mean aiming for it, but fully accept it, you start to connect to a much higher frequency because death is just a part of life.
Well, let me ask you this. When we were growing up, the movie star, I think it was the pinnacle of the movie star.
Yes.
That a Stallone or a Schwarzenegger or
Yes.
a Tom Cruise, who's arguably still somewhat of it's still a movie, the last kind of movie star.
Yeah.
The fascination with movie stars is gone.
Right.
They have no power.
Isn't that exciting?
Yeah, they have very little power because before, literally, I remember, a bad Arnold Schwarzenegger movie would still pull 20 million opening weekend back in the day. That does not exist anymore.
Even Junior.
Oh God, Junior, yeah, that was an interesting one. Yeah, Kindergarten Cop was great.
Kindergarten Cop was needed.
It was needed. It was a wonderful. It's
true.
It terrified a generation.
Yeah, of the kids or the kids. Bad guy in the Richard Tyson.
Richard Tyson, who I worked with. Yeah, he's like, so many people come up to him all the time, like, you ruined my child.
It scared us when he did the gun through the window. Arnold Schwarzenegger. That was one of the scariest moments of my childhood.
Terrifying.
That he outside came in and did that.
Oh, it was terrifying. But so that movie star, and don't get me wrong, we had movie stars throughout Hollywood.
Yes.
But the 80s, it was like the pinnacle of that. Nowadays, if you look at any quote unquote movie star, they have been doing it for 25 years.
Yes.
Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yes.
Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt, George, and even they put them in the wrong film.
Yeah.
You will never see them.
Because we're about content, not pedestals.
Right.
In fact, some of the biggest movies lately have been no stars in it. You know?
Exactly. Yeah. They've been no stars in it, or they've been lesser stars, meaning like they're known people, but they're not like movie stars anymore. The shift into social media or shift into YouTube.
Yes.
Where people are finding their people to put on a pedestal on YouTube, but they're all, the biggest ones are generally the most authentic ones. They're running around with their family, or they're running around doing stuff. I can't say that all the time. Obviously, there's fakery and things like that. But I see it with my kids who watch YouTube. I'm like looking at what they're watching. I'm like, this guy is just sitting in his bedroom doing prank phone calls. And they're like, this is amazing.
How about this thing that we watch? This is a really interesting thing. There's nothing weirder to me than watching reaction videos.
Oh, the best.
Let's think about this. For people that don't know, reaction videos are like a group of people are going to watch a thing. So we're going to watch a group of people hear a hit song for the first time.
Like, I saw a whole lot with Eminem. Like, they could watch Eminem tracks and they're like, oh.
Yeah.
that
But
kind
isn't
of
it weird that what we're watching is just people watching something? It'll be like going to a movie theater and staring at the audience, right? Like you're
well, when you put it like that, it just sounds insane.
Yeah, it is. I made a video once where I did a me reacting to, I was doing a spoof of that. And I go, today we're going to watch hammer hitting nail. And you just see a hammer slowly hitting it and me just freaking out. And then I'm like, we're on our 100th million viewer right now. Like, because it's a weird time, because what is it we're looking for? We're looking for realistic. I'd rather identify with the person in the audience because that's more me than the thing we're idolizing. We're actually idolizing now the people in the audience, the people that are watching, the unknowns, the underdogs.
So where do you think this goes, Kyle? As far as media, because out of all the guests I've had, you're a great guest to talk about this stuff because you and I both were inside the machine.
Yes.
And we have a viewpoint, a spiritual viewpoint, looking back at the machine. Where do you see media moving to in the next 5 to 10 years? I mean, where do you see Hollywood? Where do you see this new? There's going to be a new Hollywood, a new thing popping up.
I guess I think of it in terms, and I'd make the media and entertainment industry be a byproduct of an overall frequency. Anything that is moving based on control and manipulation will just be seen right through. So it will dissolve. All control needs secrecy, and all secrecy is coming to light. It's such an exciting time, right? So if you think about that, that means that the media, if they choose to move forward with higher callings, and I'm sure there will be amazing, unique, independent film producers that'll come out with a guided thing, and it'll just do well on it'll be passed on by all the studios because it's not within their control realm, but then it'll independently do amazingly, and then someone will buy it. And basically our frequency going up will be based on freedom expansion only, because nothing else makes sense. And so I can't see any way that the media could create another agenda-based control movie without people just panning it immediately. And then anything that comes out that's truly true, and it might be against what the higher-ups want, but that doesn't matter. Our numbers and our frequency.
Money. Yeah, but they want money.
Yeah, they want money. So that's why we actually are going to be the change. There's no external hero that's going to do it. So you have to think of it in terms of anything inside of you, anything in the world that has a dark agenda of control or cares much more about results than what's being created will not make it. It's impossible. And so then, but you'll also see people that were doing those things will either addiction themselves away from the whole thing, or they're going to heal themselves and have an awakening and create from that frequency.
That's fascinating, because I've been seeing that. So I live in a magical world where I understand YouTube very clearly and I understand Hollywood very clearly, and neither of the two shall meet. Right. I don't know if you've noticed that or not. They speak different languages.
Totally.
Completely. YouTube, I think, is more of where we're going.
Yeah,
because of the freedom.
And it's still got too much control.
It still
and censorship.
does. It does have control and censorship, but it's the best we got.
Yeah.
Right now. I mean, as far as like this show, without
good to go. Yeah.
Without it, I couldn't have the audience I have. You know,
totally.
Is there potential to do better? Obviously, there always is, but it's definitely a lot more open than old media,
right,
without question. So I've noticed that more people, or the old media is trying to buy big shows here, all this stuff, and bring the audience over to them because they are absolutely lost.
Isn't that crazy?
Like Spotify's deal with Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
You know, those $400 million.
I think that partially started with Louis C.K., believe it or not.
Yeah. Oh, no. When
he started doing his own things and making it $5, and all of a sudden, you know what I'm talking about?
And he pulled like $1 million or $2 million
yeah,
on the weekend.
He would basically produce his own shows.
Yes.
He would be offered deals left and right. He'd produce his own shows and develop his own thing.
And his own audience.
And his own audience, his own list, everything. And then instead of like doing a deal with Netflix or something, he would produce his own thing and he would charge $5 or whatever a download and make millions, right? So he did it on his own. And there's this old dynamic of like, you got to be discovered, or you got to wait till you have the right agency. When I booked 10 Things I Hate About You, that's one of a couple movies that I did. I didn't have an agent, a headshot. I didn't have anything. I didn't have training. It was the first audition I ever had.
You just walked in cold?
I had taken a casting director's class, and I was funny in the class and was fun and everything like that. And a few weeks later, she was casting 10 Things I Hate About You and thought of me and brought me in. Now this is the crazy part. I didn't have a headshot, experience, a resume, anything, but I was oblivious to the idea that I needed those things.
Correct.
And because of that, I was on a frequency where I brought the truest me in. And there were other actors with all those things in there. But I was oblivious to the part of me that needed to be something they wanted in order to do this. And I brought me. I brought me in stand-up. I brought the cheesy face. I brought this thing. I brought all of these things. And what happened was they not only gave me the part, but they rewrote it. I had a 2-day part that ended up being a 6-week shoot. They started making it bigger. They made the part expand. Why? Because instead of me being what they wanted me to be, I brought what I was to it. And this is why the biggest message I have is what you are is more powerful than what you think you need to be to get something. Had I believed I needed an agent or experience, I would have contracted my vibration in the audition and been apologetic and sorry for what I
we're lacking, quote unquote.
Right, was lacking and need to be, and I've been in fear. And then, you know what's ironic? I booked that movie. I booked Not Another Teen Movie after that. Did a few independents, a lot of TV appearances, and made the biggest mistake. I took an acting class. And the acting class started telling me, you need to do this. And it took what I am away from me. It said, you need to read it perfectly. You got to learn to say this. You got to do it this way. And before I took it, almost every audition I went in, I was free. I was Jim Carreying in the room, and I would book it. I booked commercial after commercial after commercial. And then I took an acting class, and she started saying, you got to do this. You have to do this. You have to do it this way. Stop being. And she took the magic out of me and put me in my head without meaning to. I'm not blaming it. But I started being what I thought I needed to be to others and lost the essence of what I truly am. And so I stopped booking everything because what was I bringing in? Control. I need to be what they want versus being what I am. I believe very much, had I stayed what I truly was and been oblivious to all the you have to crap, I probably would have booked so many more things. I booked Not Another Teen Movie without an agent. I had a friend just bring me to the set, and I just booked everything. The second I heard I need to be what they tell me I need to be, I lost me. And I've been spending the last 20 years bringing him back. Because the true essence of what I am is so much more powerful than taking all the notes of all the content of all the things that I need to do and putting myself in my head, right? So what you are is more powerful than everything you want. And when you stop being what you need to be to get things and be what you are, those things will chase you.
And it's why I've never taken a how to be a podcaster.
Right.
Of course.
Imagine and you know how many one-on-ones I do with people that are like, I was taught that I need to market this way. I was taught that I have to say, I only have 10 left to get people to run to the back of the room, or I'm supposed to market it on Instagram with this sentence. There's no them. There's no you. You're just being what someone told you they did in a different timeline in a different time. That'd be like taking a how to write music class from Michael Jackson and him saying, just write Billie Jean. That's what I did, and it worked. So if you write Billie Jean, it'll be a hit. It's a hit song. It worked. It's foolproof. You write Billie Jean now.
Tarantino said the exact same thing.
He did?
When I was in Comic-Con, I was there in Hall H. They were talking about Death Proof. Him and Robert were up there, and someone was like, what advice do you have for independent filmmakers? And he goes, write Reservoir Dogs. Yeah. That's all I could do. That's what I did.
That's right. Yeah.
He goes, I have no advice for you. I can't make that for you.
Yeah.
I wrote my Reservoir.
Which is the best advice.
I wrote my Reservoir Dogs.
Yes.
And that's how I became who I became.
Yes.
Because he was true to himself, is what he was trying to say.
One thing that points out, and imagine if Quentin Tarantino took from Steven Spielberg how to be a director. He would have just been an amalgam of some of his ideas with fully repeating Steven Spielberg.
Correct.
Right? And I think that's one of the biggest things to offer here is that I know that every single person has a magical, unique unfolding that's trying to happen to them and for them. And one mistake they make is going, what do I do with this? I'll get advice from someone else. And then they lose the guidance system. Or they check in with others, should I do this?
Right.
That don't have that same calling. But that calling, that little do this thing that opens your heart up is so legit and so real And if you just go, okay, I don't know why, but this thing is here and no one understands it, this thing is here, you will start the process of birthing a new world. And it's trying to happen for you. You just have to follow your unique thing. And this is to every person in the world. There is a unique thing trying to happen for you. And some people think when they hear the highest excitement idea, or Bashar's thing, that means it has to be a grandiose thing, like that everyone rents the theater and does the same thing.
Right.
But it's also in just being in the now. It's also in drinking water. It's in listening. What's the truest thing I can do in this second? And following it.
You were talking about Daryl Anka, who's Bashar,
yes.
who channels Bashar.
I love Daryl.
Friend of the show, and I've known him for over a decade. These ideas of this timeline shifting, we've kind of touched upon it, but what is your feeling on this kind of like parallel realities and also this shifting in timeline? Because the way, from what I understand, is like when you are lifting in a vibration, there is a group, a reality that you're being part of.
Yes.
So I don't want to get into the Mandela effect. That's a whole other thing.
Yeah. No problem.
But you start getting into these other realities.
Yes.
Do you believe that when we do make certain decisions, like there's a reality that you're still a comic? I'm probably very depressed somewhere. Very depressed as a comic.
Right.
Another timeline that you are not part of. You left that timeline, but there's another version of you. And from my understanding of quantum physics, understanding from the mystical side, that there's infinite versions of us out in the universe, living different lives, where you got married, where you didn't become a comic, where you became a janitor or something like that. In those lifetimes, what is your feeling on what Bashar is saying and how that kind of coincides with this parallel idea?
One of the things I offer and do for myself completely is truly do the very best I can to live it and see, because it unfolds in its own unique way. And I do what I can also to not get too heady in the specifics of the invisible or which way it works, because it works through my action versus my analysis.
It's a feeling, not here. It's here.
Like, you remember when the movie The Secret said, like, when you have a thought, what you focus on expands, and it shows this invisible thought leave the person and then make change. I don't know if that's what happens. You know what I mean?
Right.
And one of the things that's changed my life dramatically is being in love with I don't know. Like the real truth is I don't know what happened before I was born. I don't know what'll happen when I die. I don't know the real truth of how far the universe expands. One of the things I really love to celebrate is that I don't know, because one of the things we try to do is wrap our mind around the infinite. You're trying to wrap the thing that you've had for whatever, 40, 50 years.
Controlling the infinite.
How could you wrap your mind around the infinite? So instead of wrapping your mind around the infinite, surrender the mind and enjoy the infinite without understanding it. I don't know the specifics about if it's a literal parallel reality or what, but I have had enough experiential change through finding an opening that says, follow this. And then I do, and all of reality changes. I find myself suddenly no longer the person that wants to do that. I become the person that does it. I no longer am the limitation that says I can't do that. I no longer have the fear that says, what if I do that? Because once I do it, it's gone. So there's no more that, like, it purges that through following it. So it's almost as if when I follow a highest calling to move to a more expansive me, right? It lets go of the old me. It's gone. So one example would be the relationship that I've entered. I'm in an amazing relationship with my fiance, Amber, and it's expansive, and it's based on love and listening and healing. Both of us are in the work. We both are in this relationship for the purpose of expansion. In the past, I've had wonderful relationships, but sometimes there was an unworthy me that was a pattern. I had a mom that loved me so much, but also kind of rolled her eyes whenever I'd tell her, I'm on a late night show tonight. She'd say, like, well, what's it pay?
What's when you're going to get a real job?
Yeah. And so my pattern was always attracted to cynical women. So I could prove to them, which is really me proving to my mom, I'm legitimate. And one of the things that we do, if you have a fear of abandonment because your dad abandoned you or something, you might, for people watching, you might date a guy that will abandon you so the ego can fix it. But then if it could fix it, then that ego wouldn't be there. So the ego doesn't actually want to fix anything. It wants to start the process of fixing it, but it's based on that you have the problem. So the second I followed my highest and said, the relationship that I'm in really wants to hear my soul. She really loves me. This killed the one that was attracted to women that were cynical of me.
Right.
Do you get what I'm saying?
I completely get what you're saying.
So the guy that wanted mom's approval is just dying right now because he said yes to something that actually expands my soul. So every decision I make is, does it expand me? If it expands, so it does the career that I have expand me? Does the people in my life expand me? Does the relationship expand me? If it does, then I'm in. But the only factor of what decision I make with everything I do is it taking me past me to the truest self, and is it making the old me die? So I find that the parallel reality I find is the death of the egoic pattern that was my parents' ego's kid. And the birth is, I'm God's kid, the now's kid. I'm infinite love's kid. This me doesn't work based on fear and protection nearly as much as it moves based on expansion. Fear's still there, but it comes up so it can leave.
Beautifully said.
Right? One thing people say is, Kyle, sometimes I want to follow my heart, but guilt arises. And my answer is, it's coming up because it's coming out. In other words, your old life was based on keeping the guilt there. So if you follow your soul, the guilt will come up so it can purge. Right? So when you follow your heart, you might feel guilt. Well, I'm leaving this person that doesn't align, but I'm responsible for their feelings. Well, the guilt's coming up so it can come out. And when you finally follow your soul, it goes, yeah, we're not here to keep things going based on guilt. We're here to transcend guilt because it's not the truth. So for people with regret, follow your heart and it'll transcend the regret or resentment or fear or anything. Right?
It seems like that, basically, to kind of nutshell everything we've talked about for these last couple hours.
Yeah, it's fun.
Is that we're looking for truth now. We're looking for authenticity now.
Yes.
We're looking for that, and we are at that vibration, that frequency as a society. And that's why it's painful, because it's not a lot of it out there right now. These other systems are coming crashing down because of the idea of control. And I can just name off the industry.
Yeah.
And they all want control of you.
And it's gone. They've lost it.
It's really, I mean,
celebrate losing control.
I mean, the internet really was the stone that was dropped in the pond, and the ripples are still going on, because yes, the internet is controlled to a certain extent, but it is the last
it's
bit
much freer. Yeah.
It's the freedom that the internet allows the world to connect to everybody else.
Yeah.
It is essentially an analogy of who we truly are. We are all connected.
Yes.
We are all one, and I always talk about people, because I've talked to so many near-death experiencers. They go when they go to the other side, they're automatically connected to infinite knowledge about anything they want. So they just ask the question in their head. They instantly understand it, not intellectually, but they just know.
Yes.
They just know what it is. So it's kind of like you're connecting to the cloud.
Yeah. And wouldn't that be the highest goal?
Yeah.
Like when people are like, yeah, connect to source, I get it, but I got this business I got to get started. It's like, dude, you're not going to believe what this thing does to your business.
Correct.
It might even make you let go of it because it's got higher. Like, I find the higher I go up, the more it wants to purge everything I've ever wanted even.
Oh.
Because what I have is even more exciting than that. There's nothing more exciting than your connection to source.
I tell you, when I wanted to be a big movie director. I wanted to do blockbusters. I wanted to be Steven Spielberg. I wanted to be Scorsese. I wanted to be James Cameron, and work with these kind of giant canvases with big paintbrushes, and do a Marvel movie and all that kind of stuff. If that was presented to me now, I'd say absolutely not.
Yeah.
Not because the movies have gone a little weaker lately, but generally speaking, it's just not something I'm interested in. I couldn't be tempted by that.
So where would you think, without even knowing, you'd be in 5 years? Like, if at one point someone could have offered that to you.
I would have taken it in a heartbeat.
Yeah. And so think of how good things must be about to get as we connect more and more to what we are. Your consciousness is too high to take something that at one point your consciousness would have died for, right? So that means your consciousness is expanding and you can't get out of it. And it's expanding so exponentially now. Like, it doesn't move like this, it moves like ramp up.
Yeah,
hockey
stick.
Yeah, and it's just flying now.
It seems fine for a lot of people.
What's that?
Everything seems to be moving very fast.
Yeah.
So as a society, as humanity, there seems to be that frequency things are changing so fast.
Oh, yeah.
So fast.
Totally.
And it's not positive all the time, meaning like the change
Well,
is
it's
like
all positive.
It is okay. It is
Yeah.
all positive, but people's perception of it isn't always all positive. Like right now, it's move fast and break things. That's exactly what the humanity's consciousness is doing with the wars and the economic issues and the food and medicine and media and religion. All those things are just crackling around us.
Yeah.
Because we're all just going so fast. I mean, remember in the 70s, everything was a molasses. Change took forever. From VHS to DVD was what? 15 years?
Yeah.
Okay. From DVD to streaming was like what? 8 years? 9 years?
Yeah.
Maybe a little longer? I mean, really. And then for Hollywood to jump onto the streaming, it took a decade. A decade from Netflix to Disney Plus took 10 years. That's how slow they moved. And they were left behind.
Well, and you know what's interesting is I like to think of like we kind of are. Think of consciousness in terms of technology, right? So in the 70s and 80s, we had a rotary phone.
Correct.
Now we have iPhone, whatever, 16 that can do everything, right? Now, most of us, one of our pain points is trying to get approval from our parents who grew up in that time.
Correct.
So imagine an iPhone 16 trying to get approval from a rotary phone.
Wow.
And it's making the mistake of not understanding you've evolved past your parents in most cases. If you're watching a show like this and you meditate and you do the inner work, you've outgrown usually the consciousness of your parents and grandparents in most cases. And so a lot of people are doing what they can to make the mistake of trying to get their parents to see them or get approval from people that are not in the same frequency as they are. So they're contracting their energy and trying to get it. It'd be like a butterfly trying to get a caterpillar to approve of it. Wouldn't that be weird? And the caterpillar won't. It'll be annoyed at you because you're flying and it's not. It'll be like you think I'm...
You think you're so fancy because you fly.
You think I do everything wrong and you do everything right. And that's why a lot of times the more you free yourself, the more attacked you get.
Yes.
Because you're living freer than them.
Yes.
And people are really triggered by people that are freer than them. This is a weird point to make up, but I learned one day that 95% of gay porn is downloaded in the Bible Belt states.
Yes.
So the more that someone's in resistance to something, that's because they are repressing that in themselves and mad if someone else has the freedom that they don't have. So they get madder about it. Like, I'm not gay, but I don't have judgment of it, but that's because it's not something I'm repressing in myself and wishing I could have. So when you're attacked, understand it's people that truly are jealous of the frequency that you're emitting. And when we try to stop ourselves and cut ourselves off, cut our wings off and shrink ourselves and be like, please like me again, we're nuts, right? That's the worst thing to do. And that's why we have to let go of the need for approval and receive, it's a weird thing that these iPhones now have to upgrade like every 2 weeks, right? Like they have to upgrade all the time. So you do too. You upgrade yourself and stop trying to get your parents that might not be a thing that needs to upgrade and is watching Matlock and staying in their angry, addicted energy. You don't need to get other people to approve of you. You need to find the infinite love of the now and let it approve of you and heal the wounds that you're supposed to be seen on the third density. That's what I see third density as. The approval from other humans, the approval from other people, right? That you are attached to things versus understanding the truth of what you are. Right,
Kyle, it's so beautiful, this conversation.
It's fun.
I'm going to ask you a few questions to ask all my guests.
Sure.
What is your definition of living a fulfilled life?
Well, now it's more and more accepting the now. It's just acceptance of the now. Even if you're feeling a feeling, can you accept it? Can you feel totally horrified and accept it? Can you feel lost and accept it? So true success, it's so simple because it's only now. Ego hates that because it wants to go somewhere else and overcome now and get to the now. The ego literally thinks, I'm going to get in the now later.
I don't have time for the now.
Yeah.
I have a time for it later.
Right. I'm going to work on getting in the now. So it literally creates a timeline to escape the now under the guise of it's being the now. And your understanding and acceptance of everything in your life right now, that's what actually changes it, right? The more you accept it, the more things change. So true success, or whatever the question was, is your
fulfillment of life.
True fulfillment of life is through your acceptance of now.
If you had a chance to go back in time, jump into a DeLorean, go back in time and talk to little Kyle, what advice would you give him?
I would tell him nothing, because if he heard anything, all of his life would be different. Literally anything. If I had gone back and given him 5 and left, I probably wouldn't have my daughter. You know, I wouldn't be in the relationship I'm in now. I don't even know that I would have been a comic, because I know so much that one move we make changes everything.
Yep.
Like if this podcast was scheduled to end at a certain time, but if, let's say, like, this is so trippy, but if I go like this, now it ends at a different time. Now I go through a different traffic light that I might have been at a red light. Maybe the car behind me stops that would have gone through, right? Now that guy goes into the store and either now misses the love of his life or discovers the love of his life because he waited a minute. Now different children are born based on me going, "Mah." Now a whole new set of kids again. Isn't that crazy? Totally new people, right? Literally a whole new society based on that moment. Our problem and our pain is that we think something happened to the small us, and we don't get how much world is changing through every second, right? So if you're sitting here going, "I'm so sad because they dumped me," right? You're in your small self and you don't get that a whole new world just birthed and all kinds of different things are happening. So your problem is you're looking through the lens of the small self versus the truth.
Beautiful answer. How do you define God?
Now, this space, complete acceptance, complete forgiveness, infinite love, this space that's here right now and the space that is around anyone that's watching this is a tangible, real thing. It has infinite ideas. It has unconditional love. It has all the healing powers. This space right here is the only thing that's true, right? That to me is God. It's not mad. It's not angry. It's not punishy. It's not vengeful. We need to transcend our idea of a vengeful, egoic, human God with a bunch of mood issues to move to one that moves based on expansion and healing and true forgiveness that causes you to release the old habits that don't serve you, that causes you to bring unconditional forgiveness and love to others so that you can become the true version of what you are.
What is love?
Also now, actually the same answer as God.
Okay.
Love is what you are. Love is the now. Love is all that is. And the only thing that blocks it is the unseen, which is also loved. But once it's seen, it's loved and it alchemizes. So anything that's not the truth is just buried in the dark, and love is the seeing of it. And that's how we actually change. It's not through doing, it's through seeing. There's a reason why if you go deeper, you meditate long enough, some people just start crying. What is that? Like what happened? Oh, they saw something that was buried. So the act was seeing. And so seeing something is love. Like in a relationship, the number one thing each person wants to feel is understood. So you can do that, but you can also do that with yourself. And one mistake people make is I'm seen when someone else sees me. That's what creates the codependency. Like I can't see the truth in me until you see it. Real love says, I'm going to be a space for you to see the thing you want them to see. And then you'll see it, it'll alchemize, and then you'll be shocked that everyone sees it. So love is seeing, I think, is actually what I would put as my answer.
And what is the ultimate purpose of life?
The ultimate purpose, in my opinion, now more and more is to know what I truly am. Because when you do that, you bring the space of infinite love and unconditional presence and healing to the world. I also point out to people, it's such an FU to God for us to chase an egoic purpose. Like that, in other words, what I mean by that is the idea, and this is another thing I think Bashar would say, the idea that you exist already is your purpose. like the idea that you're going to decide it's when I'm a chef or it's when I write the book is a funny thing, and you're already thinking from lack and believe that your existence isn't your purpose. So my belief is you can't get out of purpose. And that is good news, because that means even the hard times, the block times, the unloving energies, the times where you're stuck are all in purpose, and you can't grow without those moments.
And where can people find out more about you and the amazing work you're doing in the world?
Thank you, brother. There's two things I would offer. One, I would just say to people, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, KyleCease.com. I'm very, Kyle Cease. And go to my website, KyleCease.com/unlocked, for so many different events that we have. We have a membership site that's unbelievable. And one of the things that I'm really excited about is making products that used to be thousands of dollars, now making them for $20. I made a product recently called The Angel You Forgot About. This is a product I'm so excited about. It's a 9-hour course that we literally made $20. They can get it at kylecease.com/angel. The reason I call it the angel you forgot about is that whenever you're in really, really hard time, we often look down in the darkness and try to fix it at the level of the darkness. And we don't understand that always there's an angel available in one way or another. And I say this because almost 5 years ago now, I almost committed suicide. Oh, wow. I was standing on an overpass, waiting for the specific semi to hit me. And a friend of mine who is a dear friend and space holder named Mary called me. It was almost like this angel was available to just listen. Mm-hmm. And she held a space for me and she listened. And I cried enough out that I didn't do it. And whenever we're in a really hard time, we overlook the angels that are available in God, in nature, in a therapist, in a good friend, in a space holder, in a book, in journaling, in a habit, whatever. And whenever I have hard times, I've really gotten better and better at finding the angel that I forgot about, that there's a higher thing that's trying to do something through me. And if we stop getting obsessed with the issue that we're in and looking at the level of the issue and trying to control the issue, and instead using the angel to climb up the ladder, right, then we all of a sudden connect to a higher frequency and it goes, hey, that issue will be purged if you just grab onto the angel. So if people go to kylecease.com/angel, or if they want, they can go to kylecease.com/unlocked. They can see all of that. But it's a 9-hour video series from a 2-day live event that I made $20 and people love it. It's life-changing. We've sold so many of them, but we want to make, like, this is a shift in consciousness right here. In the old days, self-help, we used to offer these things for thousands of dollars, right? I just want to be in service and just, it still creates an income and a profit. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, it's still so affordable and will pay for itself over and over and over. Mm-hmm. So a shift to me is like moving to a place of more and more service and just enjoying giving it all the time versus trying to create a giant hurdle to make it hard for people to get to. That's control. And that's about selfishness. And that's about what do I get? So we try to make these things as affordable as possible to get it to the masses, much more than, this kind of higher ticket item thing.
Kyle, it has been a pleasure having you in studio, brother. I look forward to our next conversation, and I really appreciate everything that you're doing to awaken the planet, my friend. So
thank you so much, man. I'm proud of you too, man. It's so good to see you, and I'm honored to be doing this work with you, and we have the same God and the same boss.
Appreciate you, brother.
Love you, brother.
Thanks for watching. Click on one of the videos below to continue your journey, and don't forget to subscribe.